important.
That's so fascinating because you said role play as a DM, and I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Were you playing
You role play
a
characters as a
character
DM, yeah.
who was
Yeah.
pretending?
Oh, so he wasn't even the dungeon master. Like, he couldn't take the fact that he wasn't the dungeon master, so he made his character the dungeon. Oh my god, dude. Well, it's Billy's turn to be the DM, so he's gonna be I want to be the DM. Well, alright, well, I'm the DM tonight, so what's your character? My character's a DM. Oh god. Why do we keep inviting this guy?
It's funny, you see the same thing in work, as odd as that is, when someone gets laid off from a job.
Mm-hmm.
It's very similar in terms of the reaction, which is, I got laid off from a job, I am worthless. Because I tied my emotional self to the status of that job, or I tied my emotional self to the status of that relationship. That's never healthy. I never think that is at all. Like, you are still an individual person outside of that.
Says the guy who can't stop talking about the Blizzard job he hasn't worked in years. You are the definition of guy who peaked in high school. You're like that 40-year-old man who still talks about the fucking touchdown he scored in high school and how he took it. Man, I'm all state. I'm all state. We went all the way. I took our team all the way to the championship.
Social media. You see it mostly on social media. You have people that have extreme opinions rather than having nuanced approaches to things. They don't know how to perceive anything beyond the exact thing that they've hyper-focused on in that one area. They don't know how to see a greater picture beyond that. And it usually comes across as they don't want to. That they're being, jerks or anything like that.
God, the self-reporting right now, guys. Some more Piratesoftware. I didn't realize that he talked to Dr.K more than once, and this will probably be the next 2 days worth of content, because this just says part 1, and it's like 2 hours long. And the next one, I don't know how long part 2 is. This is on a different channel. Maybe that's why I didn't see it. So we reacted to that other video of Dr.K talking to Piratesoftware, and it was quite telling. This one's also from like a year ago, so it's before all the current drama. But we'll see if there's any foreshadowing in this that leads to the current drama. I'm hoping it's just a straight interview with him, but it appears to be really long. But if we'll see if it's just kind of a rehash of what he's already done, just on a different channel, then we may not watch the whole thing. So we'll see. Piratesoftware is an interesting case. Like, I don't know how someone gets this disconnected from reality, like he's become, where his ego is out of control, the inability to accept accountability, and just having, I would say no one call him out on it, but now finally everyone's calling him out on it. And it's like he's not living in the same reality as us. You've even had, like, he's lost a bunch of fans. Like, every sign in the universe is trying to tell him what to change, and he's just angrily refusing to, just lashing out like a toddler. And it's fascinating to watch. But there's a name for this. It's called the lolcow gene. And I'm trying to see if we get any more hints of that lolcow gene in these interviews, or if it's something that is manifested as all these dramas just happen to him back to back. But he's well on his way to being the next guest on Lolcow Live, because he is showing signs of having the lolcow gene. All of the symptoms are there. The refusal to take accountability, the putting his foot in his mouth with every statement, just being confidently wrong over and over again, and then lashing out at anyone who calls him out for being wrong, and then playing victim the minute that he gets hate after inviting people to hate on him, doing all the trash talking about how he grew up on 4chan, how you can't get under his skin, do your worst, and then people did their worst, and now he's the victim. And this cycle will continue until you're standing on your doorstep in front of one of those people who brought it to your doorstep, which they shouldn't do, but that happened to Boogie with Frank Hassel, which, how funny is that his biggest troll's last name is Hassel. But then you're standing on your doorstep catching a charge because you fired a gun in the air in a residential neighborhood. But anyway,
riding that racial bonus.
We'll go check this out here. Let me pull this up. So this is a different interview than the one we saw before, but it was released around the same time. That's why I'm like, is this a different conversation, or a re-upload of that one, or an extension of it? I don't know. I'm curious to see what this is, but we'll give it a watch and see how this goes.
Cultivate a capacity for kindness. So,
Mental health,
close
May.
your eyes.
All right. It looks like
Take
this
a
was
few
cut
minutes.
from a live stream of his. So I'm just going to skip forward to where he's got Piratesoftware on. Okay, here we go. All right, what? Okay, so we'll skip forward to where Piratesoftware comes on. Looks like it took about 10 minutes into that.
Yours.
That's totally fine.
How
I
are
want
you
them
doing, man?
to be able to see your stuff. Doing good, actually. Virtual
that-
camera, is that working?
Yeah, I think this is his second conversation with him because they're acting a little more friendly this time.
Let's see.
I know that you are in the field of computer, but if you're
Yes.
oh, there we go. If you're
Hello.
struggling, I can use my racial bonus to tech support.
Oh, is that what you get? You get a
Yeah.
racial bonus to that?
So,
Nice.
So I'm I'm the kind of person who like I've just gone through life and I've never like gotten proficiency skill in computers. I've just been riding that racial bonus.
But it all makes
IT.
sense.
IT.
I don't know what my racial bonus is. I'm just like generic white guy. So like what
You're a Nepo baby. You know what your bonus is. Nepo baby. Your race had nothing to do with it. You're the first, second generation Blizzard employee.
do I get?
I mean, your name is Thor.
That is true.
No, it's not. Your name is Jason. I'm not even sure. Like, I will need to see your ID before I believe that your middle name is actually Thor. I'm not putting it past it. Maybe it's something your dad did because he's a nerd and he thought it'd be funny. But your name is Jason.
You have
Get
a
that.
racial bonus to axes. You have
Nice.
a racial bonus to hair.
That's true. I do have that. I have that
So,
bonus.
Racial bonus to axes and hair. Possibly drinking.
Maybe. I do have a high tolerance. I just don't use it.
Yeah, so that's you know.
Oh, it's funny as
How you
hell.
been, man? So you're doing good.
Yeah, doing really good. In fact, I've been able to execute on pretty much all the things that I wanted to over the last when was the last time we talked? How many months has it
Dude,
been?
it's been a while, but I absolutely loved our conversation. I have no idea what I don't remember what we talked about, but I remember just thoroughly enjoying it.
Yeah, it was
You exposed him as a narcissist and told him that he said the most arrogant phrase on the planet, bro. And I'm watching this to see if he learned anything from that conversation. I'm going to bet no.
super awesome, actually. A lot of the community pops in all the time. They're like, I just saw your Dr.K video. It's super awesome. So, no, it was super fun to talk about, man. I really enjoyed it as well. Gave me a lot of stuff to think about and kind of doubled down on all the things that I was doing. So,
Oh, really?
yeah.
Interesting. Can you tell
Yeah, so you double down on all the bad things he pointed out.
me about that?
Yeah. Yeah, so the stuff that I was doing with the ferret rescue, right? So I've kind of
That's not what he meant he doubled down on. He meant the things that he's physically doing. He took nothing away from that conversation.
expanded the idea out for that now. We're going to be building the largest ferret rescue in the United States is the idea. I've gotten a piece of land, so I moved, or I'm in the process of moving. We're waiting on the county has finally approved the project to be able to build fiber there, which is huge.
Oh, wow.
So we're going to be able to build a building that is going to be the largest ferret rescue in the United States. I'm going all in on that, having a lot of fun with it, and hiring in people that are going to be full-time veterinary work and management.
How much I want to bet his persona's a ferret? I'm not saying it's a sex thing for all furries. But being this obsessed with ferrets is a little weird. And also being a furry when those two things combine. Just saying. Just saying. Something to think about. I'm not alleging anything. Just making observations.
For that, so they can run it, and then we can have that as a side thing. And yeah, that's kind of like the big thing that I'm doing with that. The game jam that I was running actually exploded, so we did 1,400 games for that. We ended up giving out $30,000 to the winners of that, so we've helped fund those new aspiring studios for that. So that was a huge winning for that. And then I'm looking into either building a publishing house or working with a publishing house to try and direct that to help with new indies wanting to get published in that direction. So that's made me pretty happy with that. That's a really long-term goal of mine that I had, and it's much more attainable now. Also, I hired on all of my moderators, so everybody is now, 6 of them are salaried right now. We're starting with half the team, then we're going to do the other half of the team once we make sure that all this is financially stable enough to do it. And they all get benefits, so medical benefits, dental, vision, all the healthcare stuff that I can throw at it.
Okay, we need to check up on all that and see if all that's still happening because he's making a lot of claims here that I'm willing to bet have kind of fallen apart since the drama.
basically, and retirement as well for all of that. And I've set it up in a corporation, so the corporation's finally done. Did an S corp, so there's no way that I could ever IPO it. It has to be, I can never go back on that promise. We structured in that way to get rid of any perceptions that could happen, and then made sure that all of that was done in a way where basically the employees are going to be taken care of as much as possible, because I can't do this without them. They can't do it without me.
That's
So,
awesome.
Which I'll give him a million props if that's the case. It sounds like he's running an honest business. But I want to see if any of this actually manifested, or if this was just things he planned on doing and didn't follow through. Kind of like, well, the game he's making that he has yet to follow through on.
Awesome, dude. So
Basically, just executed on everything I wanted to.
yeah. So can you tell me a little bit about what is Game Jam?
So a game jam is a whole lot of people want to make video games, right? And they may not have sort of the drive to do it. They're like, I don't know if I want to do this. I don't know how to start. I don't know where to do this. So you give them a 2-week period and you say, you have a theme. This is the theme for the game jam. It'll be something ridiculous. Our last one was it's spreading, right? So like, you're going to make a game around spreading.
Yeah, it's not people getting started. It's people who are trying to make a name for themselves. So if you know nothing about coding, because the way you just described it made it sound like if you know nothing about coding, you can go there to learn. No, you're supposed to already know how to make games. And a game jam is, we're going to make small, quick games over the course of a couple weeks, maybe a month max. And then you submit your game at the end of that time frame. Everybody has the same length of time to make a game around a theme. And then whoever makes the best game wins a prize. So it's like an indie game thing. Some cool games have come out of it, but they're just mostly exposure for those indie devs to have their little moment in the spotlight and maybe make a name for themselves. Even if you don't win, maybe you make a game good enough that the game goes viral. I want to say Among Us came out of a game jam, but I could be wrong. Don't hold me to that one.
Mechanics in some way, whatever it's going to be. And they build that game as a prototype, and then they submit it, and then we vote on it, and then we give them feedback, and we try to basically build this environment where they feel safe failing. You should fail doing this. It's likely that you will not succeed. So you get a really good, safe environment to fail at. You learn a bunch of stuff, and then you move forward as a game dev. And if you win, it is likely that you will be able to take that to be a game that you can go and sell on Steam or show other people or whatever we want to do with it at that point. You get a bunch of accolades and things like that.
So people build a game in 2 weeks?
Yes. Oh, yeah. And it'll usually be...
Yeah, it's a small indie game, and the reason you do this, because what he means by make it okay to fail, is you've spent no money on it. So they're fronting the bill. And if you fail, then you've lost nothing but time, but you got to, kind of get some exposure. But if it succeeds, the part he's leaving out from what I understand with these game jams, again, don't quote me on this stuff, I'm going off memory here, but from what I understand is they get ownership of the game. They'll help you finish it and make it better because you're just making a prototype, a first draft, so they'll help you update it and turn it into a fully fleshed out game that they can sell on Steam, but they're your publisher, so you're selling it under them, and they're going to take a large cut of those profits on Steam. So it's good for those developers, but it's not as cut and dry as he's making it sound. They're obviously getting something out of it.
Be a prototype that's kind of junky, right?
Yeah.
But like they get the core of an idea of something that's really good, really compelling, and then they can expand that out into the future. And we've already gotten dozens of games that have contacted us and said like, "Hey, I'm planning on building a studio out of this now. Thank you for doing the game jam. I'm so inspired to do this." Or people that say,
"Wow,
I didn't finish," or like, but I never felt like I was comfortable.
And it's not just game jam. I mean, I know that's what his is called, but there have been other ones that do the same thing. Like it's not just his that do it. They've had other names for it, not game jam, but something else. But this isn't exactly a new thing. This has been done before.
Enough to make a game. I didn't think I could, so they went and did it. The first one I ever did like this, I actually tricked our community into learning, which was quite funny. So many people were like, I don't want to do that. I can't make a game. I can't program. And I was like, okay, then we won't do a game jam about making a video game. We'll do a game jam about what you would do if you did make a video game. So they created what's called a game design document, which is you make a piece of paper that says everything you would do if you made a game, all the tools you would work with, all the things that you would learn, everything you needed to know, how you would plan it out. And then that was the first week of the game jam. I was like, it's just a week-long jam. After the week was over, I said, okay, second week, bonus round, go make the prototype. And they went, well, I already know how. I'm not afraid anymore. I did all the research. Now it's easy. and they went and did it. We had, I think it was 98% of the teams actually.
Ironic that he's saying all this stuff about how easy coding is, and last night we went over those streams of people reviewing his code, and it didn't look great.
Actually went forward and made a prototype on our first game jam.
Wow,
as a result
that's
of it.
awesome, dude.
Yeah,
It's
it was
also,
huge.
It's also interesting because that
What does it say that if he's had people come through, do these game jams, and gone from knowing nothing about coding to releasing a full-fledged game in less time that it's took him, a 20-year veteran of the industry, as he would put it, to make his one game, to make Heartbound?
reminds me of something
Just food for thought.
that we do in psychotherapy, which
That,
is
of course, Dr. K isn't going to ask him about it because he doesn't know anything about that stuff. I really wish he would, like, do more homework on the people he talks to learn what they've been up to instead of just asking them and taking them on their word. But I guess that's how it works in therapy. You're not supposed to research your patients, which, again, he's not a patient. This is just a conversation. But if it were a therapy session, you're not supposed to research your patient. You're supposed to get their perspective, and just you're there for their feelings and how they're processing things, not the validity of the things that they're saying. So I kind of get where Dr. K, I kind of get why he operates the way that he does, but seeing as how this is just a conversation and not an actual therapy session, it would be nice if he knew a little more and could call him on some stuff, even if he did it in a friendly way. How did I miss? Okay, what is happening?
is so if someone doesn't want to talk about something, we use this technique called going meta. So if someone says like, "Oh, I don't want to talk about my relationships," and it's totally fine to respect boundaries. We don't the goal isn't to push, but what we'll do is we'll ask people, "Can you help me understand why you don't want to talk about it?" Totally fine. We don't have to talk about it, but what's your reason? So what we do is like, here is the thing that is psychologically activating. And what we want to do is move one layer like meta or one layer like remove from it and talk about the obstacle to the thing that is scary. And it almost sounds like y'all stumbled into that or thought of that, right? Which is like, okay, we're not going to actually make a game. We're going to do something else that feels emotionally safer and moves us closer to the topic. And then we oftentimes find that that's very effective at getting people to like open up.
Yeah, the basic idea I had about it was like, because I have a background in social engineering, right? It's part of my job, part of my work. And I was like...
I love how he's got a background and whatever he thinks will help him on the thing he's talking about. When he's talking about being a developer, he's got a background in development. When he's talking about being a hacker, he's got a background in hacking. This is the one time he's being honest, where he's got a background in social engineering. Because when he calls himself a hacker, that's the kind of hacking that he did. Social engineering. He wasn't like the guy behind the keyboard hacking into your stuff like you see in the movies. He was sending out emails fishing for people to give them, access to their accounts or give them passwords or give them password hint questions and things like that. That's how he gained access to shit. Not by technical knowledge, but by social knowledge. So he is being honest here. I'll give him that.
The one thing that's stopping people is they're afraid. And they're mostly afraid not because of anything other than they just don't know what it takes. And because they don't know what it takes, they're worried about failing. So it's like, well, what if we structure that around exposing them to what it takes and do it in a way where it doesn't matter if they fail or not? And it worked. It ended up working really, really well. So it was kind of stumbling into that, frankly.
Yeah, that's
from
super
that just
cool.
General understanding.
What is social engineering?
So social engineering is when you are trying to...
I refuse to believe Dr. K doesn't know what this is. I think he's just asking him to make him explain it. You can kind of hear in the inflection in Dr. K's voice when he's doing that. Also, what is this? And then he gets kind of higher with his voice. Yeah, he's placating you to get you to explain it to him. So he already knows, but he wants to see what your take on it is. Why do you call yourself this? Because everything he's asking and everything he's going to say is going to come from the perspective of a psychiatrist, even though this is not a therapy session.
To either manipulate a situation to get a certain outcome with another person, right? Or I use it more often to try and figure out what somebody needs in order to move forward or move past the thing that's blocking them. A lot of times I used it when I was in, offensive security to try and get into areas of access that I wasn't supposed to be in. I role play as a character or I do anything like that to try and move forward to do that, to try and trick them into letting me have access where I shouldn't have access or get information out of an employee that I shouldn't have. A good example of this is, let's say you're a customer service representative and I call in. And while I'm talking to you about my customer service problem that I have, I say, hey, I'm thinking about applying at your business. And I'm wondering, I can't really cook. I'm not good at that. Can you tell me where like the best places to eat in the area? Because I'll be there pretty soon for an interview. And then you tell me.
So this is an example of the kind of hacking he does, which is send a bunch of emails, become friendly with a person, and then once you gain their trust, you exploit that trust to get access to their account.
Where you eat in the area, and now I know where to go to be able to clone your badge if I need to break into your office. That is part of social engineering. It's starting kind of a situation like that for an ulterior motive is the idea. And that's kind of what that first game jam was. The ulterior motive was to get people to learn, so you can do it for good reasons. But
which sounds like a scummy thing to do. You have to be a certain type of person to do that. So the fact that that is what his expertise is in is really telling.
Yeah, that's so interesting. So so this is not coding. What you're
Thank
social
you.
engineering is
it's people dissection, right?
Yeah,
It's behavioral
is this like
analysis.
freaking?
It's manipulation. Okay? It's fraud. It's deception.
No, freaking is phone hacking. So
Okay.
this is behavioral analysis, social engineering is. It's a very common thing. It usually comes down to acting and understanding body language and behavior. But a lot of it is done by intuition, not through reading.
You're a con man. You're a professional con man. Now, you're doing it for the greater good when you do it for a business because you're showing them the vulnerabilities in their company to be like, hey, your employees keep falling for this trick. Maybe you should train them better. But to be able to have the skills to do that, you have to have the skills of a con man.
Is through learning that over time. I learned it hilariously from playing Dungeons and Dragons because I role play as a DM. Like I'm a DM and I have to role play a bunch of characters and I can see the immediate emotional response from my players, so I know how to act in certain ways.
Okay, he does not speak for all dungeon masters in Dungeons and Dragons. I was a DM back in high school for many of my sessions. Being good at being a DM means you're a good storyteller and you're good at crafting a narrative and a world that people believe and want to live in. It's not about you're not learning con man skills in it. Okay, most of us aren't using that for the purpose of manipulation because we figured out how people work. You come off as a trustworthy person to people who don't know you, and you're good at exploiting that trust. That's what he does.
Thing does the same thing for you as well. You immediately react to how chat is reacting. You see the things that you say, if they function or don't function, and how you say things, the inflection that you use, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
super
that's,
important.
That's so fascinating because you said role play as a DM, and I was like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Were you playing
You role play
a
characters
character
as a DM. Yeah.
who was
Yeah.
pretending-
Oh, so he wasn't even the dungeon master. Like, he couldn't take the fact that he wasn't the dungeon master, so he made his character the dungeon. Oh my god, dude. Yeah, he's that guy that we wouldn't have played with twice. Holy fuck. He is that Dungeons and Dragons player that when he showed up and he's so butthurt that he didn't get to be the DM that night, that you're doing your game of Dungeons and Dragons and you're like, well, it's Billy's turn to be the DM, so he's going to be the I want to be the DM. Well, all right, well, I'm the DM tonight, so what's your character? My character's a DM. Oh, God. Why do we keep inviting this guy? Yeah, Jesus Christ, dude. God, the fucking fragile ego on this guy.
to be a DM? Like that would be.
Yeah, pretending to be one. Yeah, no, definitely.
I pretend to be a DM,
Yeah,
and
I do sometimes. It's good.
God, Dr. K's too nice to point it out, too, but he's picking up on it. He's picking up on how pathetic it is.
Good. Yeah.
That's so fascinating. So it sounds like you've and the social engineering stuff is, I think, a really interesting topic of discussion because that too is something that. So it sounds like a lot of what you do is very similar, actually, in a lot of ways to what we do or what I do, which is also trying to help people understand what makes them tick and how to make tasks easier for you to complete, how to understand your mind and like how it works in your brain.
Yeah.
And so that's super cool.
What?
Yeah.
Yours comes from a very different background than mine, though. Like mine is very intuition based, so there are going to be gaps for me, like 100%. And I think that's really interesting. I think it's interesting that you have kind of two paths that lead to the same goal there in different ways.
Oh, give me a second. This is my.
Oh.
Hey, what's up? Okay. Yeah, I'll balance them more. All right. I need to make an audio adjustment. All right. Hopefully that's better. Count to 10
Just
for me.
producer.
1, 2, 3.
I can't
4,
afford a
5.
crew, so
Yeah.
those of you in chat
I've
get to
been
act as
balanced.
my producer.
Yeah,
It's
so-
finally happened.
Let me know how
So,
things sound.
it's interesting that you say that there's going to be gaps in yours.
Seriously, I do depend on you guys to tell me when stuff's wrong because I can't hear or see what you see. So things might sound good or look good on my end, but it may be different for you. So, just saying. Don't feel like you're never in the wrong to call out stuff you see that's technically wrong on stream. Maybe something's not showing on screen when it should. Something sounds weird. Yeah, just point it out in chat. I'm never gonna get mad about that.
I mean, I think that is undoubtedly objectively true. But I think one of the things that I've learned about sort of like this dichotomy between like science and spirituality. So if you look at like psychotherapy versus like, let's say, meditation training.
Sure.
The yogis and these like Buddhist monks and people like that, they sort of had a sample size of one, and they were just interested in the subjective. They were not interested in objectively what is correct for all of humanity. They were interested in what works for an individual.
Yeah.
So their laboratory was a single person.
So I think I see where he's going with this. He's comparing two different schools of thought and seeing which one Piratesoftware leans more towards. Are you the guy who worries about who sees the bigger picture and worries about what's good for humanity? Or are you the guy who, I'm just kind of worried about the individual, that individual being me?
The interesting thing about the Western perspective, we think it's superior because it's scientific, and scientific is about objective truth. The
sure.
challenge is that the application of science to an individual has a big gap. So even though we have a study that shows that cognitively reframing is healthy.
Yeah, everybody will point to anecdotal stuff to be like, I don't care what your study or statistics say, that didn't affect me, so it doesn't feel real. I don't see what that study says in my personal life, so I don't care what the study says. Because people always point at statistics and stuff to prove people wrong, and even though you may be technically correct, on the whole, what affects the country as a whole isn't affecting this one individual who's not, obviously a representation of what that study is. So he doesn't care about the study. It still doesn't feel real to him.
It doesn't teach us how to cognitively reframe. So that is
I can
actually
agree
a
with that.
subjective process. So
Yeah.
I think when you say it's primarily intuition, I mean, that I think is...
Like a great example of that you can see like right now is trans people will remind everybody constantly on Twitter when they're fighting for trans rights and stuff that they make up less than 1% of the population. But when they're talking to people on Twitter, you'll see in the replies that it doesn't feel like you make up less than 1% of the population, because every time I turn on my TV, you're all I see. I see news reports about trans people in sports. I see trans people being, represented more and more in movies. So why are we going out of our way to represent less than, why does less than 1% of the population make up 20% of the representation in media or whatever it is? Yeah. So there's a correlation there that doesn't line up. So it doesn't feel real to them, even though it's true. They do make up less than 1% of the population, but it doesn't feel that way because the media gives them way more than less than 1% of the coverage.
An interesting thought, but I think that just because it is subjective or a personal exploration does not mean that it is inferior to science.
I think it's experiential more,
Yeah.
I guess is better than the intuition way of saying that. It's more experiential. So it's based on my experiences, and it's based in not in a clinical setting. It's more in a out in the world setting.
Yeah.
So that makes more sense. Definitely.
Yeah, that it'd be interesting to kind of compare notes.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think the biggest gap that I get in that regard is terminology. There's going to be terminology, like I said last time, terminology is just going to be missing because of that. Because it's like, I learned this thing out in the street, It's
Yeah, no, but I think that the terminology is, it's really interesting because you mentioned that. Because there's actually an interesting study, I forget what it's called, it's some report. Back in the early 1900s, there was, so medical education was not standardized. So like you had all these med schools that were just teaching whatever the hell they wanted.
They also put cocaine in toothpaste.
So there was some report, I'm blanking on the name, that analyzed like the different medical schools and like tried to figure out like, okay, is there any consensus here? And in the process of that report, they also point out that medical jargon is specifically obtuse
Yeah.
to try
It
to
is.
keep regular people from understanding and preserve the status of like a medical doctor. That's why they use Latin for everything instead of just
Yep.
saying like, oh, you have like, osteoarthritis as opposed to my knee hurts.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting because the terminology is actually used to gatekeep.
Yeah. I think it's actually funny is that reminds me of Idiocracy, though, because if you go too far in the other direction, you end up getting something that makes no sense. Where you're like, oh, my bones suck. Like, okay, but what does that mean? Like,
Yeah, there's a lack of precision.
yeah, a little
Yeah, I think that may have been the original reason, but the reason we keep it now is because we understand so much more about the body that a lot of things share symptoms. So just telling the symptoms doesn't tell us what you have. So it is better to have these complicated names for things because they act as identifiers now. So when you hear that you have arthritis, you know what that is. But when you hear achy bones, achy joints, that could be a number of different things. So I feel like it serves a purpose other than just gatekeeping. But I see the point he's trying to make.
But
Yeah, we see that I think a lot with our emotional vocabulary, where we're not precise about what we feel and what we think.
I think a lot of times people lack the kind of words to express that, though. Not to discredit or say that that's like their fault or anything. It's just many people don't talk about emotions. They don't talk about their feelings, and like society doesn't like you to do that a lot of the times, frankly. And I think that sucks. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's absolutely something that is discouraged. So one of the best examples that I can think of is that everyone says that communication is important for a relationship. They'll ask you like, oh, like you've been married for 40 years. What's the secret? They'll say like communication. But what is that?
That's a big part of it, yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's more than just that, but yeah, that's a big part of it. I've been married for 20 years. I think I understand a little bit about what makes a marriage work.
What that means.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does that mean? So yeah, go ahead.
Super common. It's just a super common thing, and it's true. It's like communication matters, but it's like what does that communication entail?
Absolutely.
And it means telling your partner you're upset. It means telling them that you are upset, that you don't like the thing that's going on, telling them why you don't like that thing. It means, and to be honest with you, sometimes it means fighting, man. Sometimes it means having a verbal argument. Not a physical argument, obviously, but a verbal argument about something is sometimes that's what's needed. If there's an emotional thing on the table and it's deeply distressing, having a verbal argument about it is normal. There's nothing wrong with that. Just don't make it bad, like don't take it too far.
I think that's certainly an important part. I think one of the things that worries me, there are a couple times that,
I mean, it's more to it than just talking. Communication can be a lot of things. There's nonverbal communication. There's a lot of different ways to express yourself and it's not so much also saying things, but also being able to see when, anticipate your partner's needs and pay attention to them and be able to read what they're communicating even when they're not talking is a big part of it.
I've talked to people about their relationship, and one of the things that actually worries me, one of the things that I consider sort of a yellow flag or a red flag, is a lack of conflict.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
oftentimes,
I learned that in the past in relationships of mine. It's like, wow, it's perfect until it wasn't. And we didn't have any practice fighting. We had no practice having arguments the entire time, and then we had an argument, and it was real bombastic, and that sucked, and it self-destructed the relationship, because it was like we went from this whiplash of just like perfect, everything's fine to we fought, verbal argument real bad, couldn't recover from it because there's no like getting rid of the stress over time. It was just like a powder keg. It was like
There's some truth to that. I mean, obviously no two people are going to agree 100% of the time. There's going to be some animosity between people at any point in time. Conflict resolution is a big part of the communication, sure. Did I ever get into Sly Cooper? Yeah, I remember playing it back on PS3, but I haven't heard that name in a long time.
pressure cooker, right?
Yeah.
So it all goes off at once. You have to argue sometimes. You have to make that shit known.
It's interesting. I did a lecture a couple months ago. I think we uploaded it to
Obviously, that's an area I excel at, and my wife knew this getting into it, that I am someone who actively enjoys an argument.
YouTube about how red flags early in relationships are good. So like this,
Really?
yeah, so
Interesting.
it's super fast.
It depends on the red flag. Obviously, if you found your spouse, showing signs of being sexually attracted to minors, or some huge red flag like that, then maybe that's not a good thing. Again, I see the point he's making, but maybe you shouldn't make that definition so broad.
Fascinating. So I would say 50% of successful relationships that I've seen as a psychiatrist. I don't do a whole lot of couples counseling, so I have a lot of patients who
Obviously.
have very healthy relationships. And when I ask them about like the start of their relationship, they're usually red flags. Like in half of the cases, they're like solid red flags. So in one case, 22-year-old.
What kind? Yeah.
Yes, a 22-year-old with basically no career prospects, asking out a 16-year-old, right? So
Yep.
big no-no.
Whoa.
With parental awareness, so there was nothing shady. So like the person, like,
Nah, it still sounds pretty shady. 24 and 16? I mean, that age gap would be fine if the younger age wasn't a minor.
went over to the 16-year-old's house and was like, "Hey, I would like to take your daughter on a date," and parents were actually like okay with it. And
How old was the person?
22.
Okay, 22, not 24. But that's Jesus. Still a pretty big age gap. Woo! Gotcha, bitch.
Oh man.
Maybe 21.
Even
was-
then. That's-
Yeah. So right? That's what I'm
yeah,
saying.
nah.
And they're happily married now, and like they've been married for like 20 some odd years, and they've got kids and a life and all this good stuff. Like it's crazy.
Started weird.
It started weird.
24 and 16 is crazy. 26 and 18 looks... I mean, at that point, like, no matter how much you feel about the age gap when the girl is 18, bottom line is she's 18. So she's a legal adult. If an 18-year-old wanted to hook up with a fucking 60-year-old, like, it's fine. You could be grossed out by it, sure, but there's nothing technically wrong with it. Like, there's nothing you could do about it. So you kind of eat that one. Yeah, like, that's fine. But when the minor's involved and you say, oh, well, the parents gave consent, it's 22 and 16, not 24 and 16, but 22 and 16 is still 6 years between that's a pretty big age gap, even as adults. And depending on the age of the adults. Like, the older you are, like 36 and 30, who cares? But like 26 and 20, or 24 and 18, well, you're in two different stages of your life at that point. One of you is in high school still, the other one's in college. Yeah, so it's a different ball game. So the age gap has to be taken into account, but I'm sorry, before the age of 18, like, I think the max would be, I'm not saying there isn't an age gap where an adult could date someone who's a minor. Obviously 18 and 16, it's fine. I think 3 years would probably be my gap for, like, how big the age gap can be. So, like, 19 and 16, would probably be fine. Because if you got a late birthday, you could still be 19 in high school. And then a 19-year-old dating a 16-year-old, well, that's just two high school kids dating. If he's a senior and he had a late birthday, so he's a year older than everyone in his class. Because that happened to me. My birthday's the day after Christmas. I was a year older than everybody in my class all the time, simply because I had a late birthday. I had started school late. That's just how it works. So that could have happened to me. I could have been 19 with a 16-year-old girlfriend. Didn't happen to me in high school. My girlfriend was the same age as me throughout all of high school. But it could have been. Like, I could have been if I was a senior dating a freshman, I would have been 19, and that freshman would have been, 16 years old. So would have been fine. Freshman, sophomore. It still would have been just two high school kids dating. So there's a lot of caveats to it. And I mean, if it sounds like their relationship worked out, and the parents were good with it, then yeah, that is a red flag, and that's one of the times it worked out. But then you'll still have people online going, well, it's only worked out that long because he groomed her. he groomed her, and now she's only been with him, and she's scared to leave me. Yeah, so people are going to try to like read a lot into it. So I'm not going to do that with this person because I don't know this person, but I mean that's possible. I'm not going to pretend like it's not. That's why they're called red flags. They require, more attention. They're not something you should just brush off. You should look further into this. Red flag isn't necessarily a deal breaker. It means, look at this. It's supposed to get your attention. Might be nothing, or it might be a reason to walk the other way.
And the interesting thing is that the parents were really like because the guy was quite. I mean, they were like quite impressed, and they're like, this guy seems like respectful and decent, and also like seems like to really care about.
She's 16. I'd be like that.
Hey, look, I'm telling y'all, it's red flag is early. I'm not suggesting that you date 16-year-olds.
That's like the largest red flag. Yeah.
I've seen it.
Weird.
So another really good one is like, so two people met at a professional event, like a conference, and then they like text back and forth, and they like make it a point to like go to conferences where like one person is, and that's like the start of their relationship, where like
so they're basically stalking each other.
Hey, are you going to this conference? Okay, like if you're coming, then I'm coming. And it's like they're not dating. They're just texting back and forth. And then they like show up. And for a period of like a year, they're just meeting randomly at conferences for like, every 2 or 3 months. And so that's the kind of thing where it's like, flying halfway across the country to see someone that you're not dating. And you've got a professional reason to do it. Like you can go to the conference and make it worthwhile. But to do that repeatedly, like, another red flag.
It's a little weird.
I don't know if I'd call that one a red flag. That's courting. And anyone who's watched The Office is like, oh, he's just describing Jim from The Office. Isn't that what Jim did? He like structured himself around Pam for the longest time, and then finally they hooked up and they got together, and it was one of TV's greatest love stories, blah, 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 because he chased after this girl even when she had a girlfriend. There were a lot of red flags by his definition with, Jim and Pam from The Office, but that's a thing that, like, everyone looks at that relationship as the one that they want. As the example. God damn, how are you already right behind me? How? I just like teleported past. I don't understand. How are you already right there? What the fuck?
I don't know if that one's as big of a red flag to me. It's just a little strange.
Yeah,
it's
there's various kinds.
Yeah, it's definitely different kind.
I remember seeing one of those Catch a Predator videos from Vitali, and the pred was like 18 or 19, and the minor was 16. And it seemed kind of messed up because he's literally ruining someone's life by putting them on camera. Yeah, but that doesn't sound like a predator thing. That just sounds like, again, like two high schools dating. That was my whole complaint with the, like, all those allegations and stuff come out about Cameron, the new content cop guy that did the content cop on iDubbbz. As he's a predator, and all of the Hassan sweepers were trying to cover it. Like Queeman made so many videos about it. Him and Imral, like, and J-Stalk, they all just wouldn't shut up about it. They were desperate to paint this guy as a pedophile, and I was going to look into it on stream, but I ended up looking into it off stream, and basically it all boiled down to, first they tried to say he SA'd a girl. He sexually assaulted a girl. And then he actually addressed that in one of his videos where the girl's like, no, you didn't sexually assault me. It was basically just he gave her a non-consensual hug for a bit too long. And she thought it was weird. And they tried to be like, oh, yes, hate her, yes, hate her. So when that allegation didn't stick, then they tried to call him a predator because they found out her age. And he's 19 and she was 16. And I was like, oh, that's it? Yes, she's a minor, bro. She's a minor. Okay, well, you're making it sound like she was 10 or 12, like she was a minor. They're in the same age range. 19, 16, that's just two high schoolers dating. I don't, like, he's a senior in high school. She was like a sophomore. Like, this is nothing. This is a nothing burger. I'm sorry, this is nothing.
I think the interesting thing is that when you have a red flag early, it gives you an opportunity to like work through some negativity. And so what tends to happen when we look for green flags is exactly what you described, which is like, oh, this person's great, 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 and there aren't like challenges. And then when a challenge comes along, like your ability to deal with challenges is like underleveled.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're with someone who there's some kind of conflict early on, like it lets you level up your conflict resolution skills.
I think that actually happens over time with multiple relationships too. Like as you have relationships throughout your life, you will have ones that fail and you learn stuff from each one of those and you get better at conflict resolution, you get better at communicating, you get better at finding out what's the line in the sand for you, right? Of like what works for you as a person and what you need in a relationship. And I think many people don't really realize that. They're like, I had a bad relationship, now I'll never have one again. It's like, no, you will. You'll have more. You should have more. And you'll get better at it. It's a skill, like everything else, right?
Yeah, I think this theme of being safe to fail, I think that's the challenge. I see that so much in relationships, whereas people, instead of thinking about it as something that you will get better at.
I mean, that's the best advice I give young people when it comes to dating girls and stuff. It's like, stop trying to go for the girl of your dreams and just be comfortable with the idea of practice. So date a girl, instead of going after a 10, go after like a 5. Date a girl you get along with and don't care what she looks like, just to get the experience of being in a relationship. Go into that knowing that you have no intention of marrying this girl, that you're just going along for the ride, for the experience, and just be in the relationship and take it seriously. And who knows, maybe it does turn into more. Maybe you find yourself actually falling in love. But if you don't, then you just ride the relationship out till it reaches its conclusion and take everything you learned from these relationships that you don't really care if they fail, but you're taking them seriously enough. Obviously, it's a girl you like and you get along with, but she's not the girl of your dreams. So you want to make the relationship work, but you understand that I'm probably not going to spend the rest of my life with her. And you just see where it goes. And after you've done that a few times, then when you do meet that girl of your dreams or that girl that's going to be your wife, it's a lot easier to navigate that relationship so you don't fuck it up. There's a lot less pressure on you. But guys seem to think like she has to meet all of these checkboxes or she has to be perfect or I'm not going to date. Like every girl can't be your dream girl, dude. Like you need to get some practice first. This is a lot of you incel men out there are incels by choice. Because I've met some that come in chat that say that they're incels. They're 20-year-old virgins. They've never had a girlfriend a day in their life. And I'm like, oh, are there any girls you like? And blah, blah, blah. And then when they tell me that, I start showing them pictures of average-looking girls. Or I'll go through their Instagram and I'll see some average-looking girls. I'm like, hey, you and this girl seem together. They're like, no. And then you find out that they're like a denim simp or something. Like they won't settle for anything less than this e-girl that they've become obsessed with. She has to look and act like this. I want her to like video games. I want her to be hot. I want her to be blah, 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 blah. I've got standards. Yeah, well, their standards are the reason why you might die alone. Okay, you need to like adjust your standards to reality. Because you're asking for a 10, but are you a 10? Look in the mirror. Are you really going to tell me you're fucking Chris Hemsworth over here? You're a fucking 10? Really? You? Do you think you deserve a 10? Okay. Let's just reel it back in a little bit here. Incels won't settle for less than a 10 when they're like a 4. Yeah, like there's no fucking self-awareness. No fucking self-awareness. I'm not saying that a 4 can't get a 10, but you got to go through some 4s yourself first to get that to build up that confidence and get that charisma and get that experience talking to women so that when you approach a 10 as a 4, your personality and your charisma has to do a lot of heavy lifting. A 10 will date a 4. Girls aren't as obsessed with looks as guys. Like girls aren't as shallow as guys are. I have seen some really hot girls with some really ugly men. But that man, he was funny, had a great personality, like he made her feel some kind of way. He brought a lot to the table. And that mattered. So if you're an incel, you want a 10 and you're a 4, well, you need to get some experience first so that when you meet that 10 or you go to approach her, you've got that charisma, you've got that experience. You're not fumbling through it like it's your first time ever talking to a fucking woman. Because then you're never going to get that 10. You're going to be alone forever. All right, baby steps, man. Baby steps. And ugly bitches do need love too. All right, it's not gonna kill you to lose your virginity to an ugly chick. In fact, it'll make you better at sex for when you get the hot one, if you ever get the hot one. See, you gotta start planning ahead. I ain't gonna lie. Back in high school, yeah, I fucked some fat bitches. All right, I didn't date all tens, but then when I met a hot woman like my wife, well, I knew what I was doing, and she wasn't ready to just bail on me because, the sex was bad. No, I made sure I was well equipped to keep her around. And it worked. So you cannot listen to me if you want. But when I start explaining my relationship to most of these incel guys, it seems like I have everything you guys say you want. So, especially when I show you what my wife looked like when we met compared to, not that she's ugly now. I'm just saying, this is 20 years later and she's had 2 kids. Of course, she's not going to look like she did at 16. I think she looks pretty damn good for her age, though. I think we both do.
Over time, you have a relationship, and if one person considers you unworthy of love, then a lot of people will make a conclusion in their mind, once again, not their fault, that I am unlovable.
It's funny, you see the same thing in work, as odd as that is, when someone gets laid off from a job.
Mm-hmm.
It's very similar in terms of the reaction, which is, I got laid off from a job, I am worthless, because I tied my emotional self to the status of that job, or I tied my emotional self to the status of that relationship. That's never healthy. I never think that is at all. Like, you are still an individual person outside of that.
Says the guy who can't stop talking about the Blizzard job he hasn't worked in years. You are the definition of guy who peaked in high school. You're like that 40-year-old man who still talks about the fucking touchdown he scored in high school and how he took it. Man, I'm all state. We went all the way. I took our team all the way to the championship. The fucking high school sports jock who peaked in high school. He was the star quarterback 30 years ago and ain't done shit since. So incels are the types of dudes that want head but will never give head, like Sneeko. No, Sneeko's lying. He would definitely give head. He'll also sit in the cuck chair and watch his wife get head from another dude.
And I find that happens far often. Very, very often.
Yeah, so there's a lot of interesting neuroscience, evolutionary psychology, and kind of like yogic stuff around that. So the tying of the self to a particular aspect is something that, speaking of terminology, in Sanskrit is called the ahamkara, or the ego. Right?
Okay.
So like we have this...
That's one I actually know.
Oh, okay.
So that's one I actually know.
Yeah. So the ego is when our ego gets tied up into something, and I think this is something that's so confusing for people.
See, I feel like he calls Piratesoftware out without calling him out because, again, he's trying to be nice and this isn't a therapy session, but he keeps bringing up these issues, and every issue he brings up applies to Piratesoftware, but he doesn't tell Piratesoftware he has that issue. I think he's either A, trying to make sure that he's legally in the clear because this isn't a therapy session, and B, he's probably waiting to see if Piratesoftware will identify it himself and admit to having any of it, but he never will.
Is that they don't realize that they are not their ego. So I have a conception of who I am, which is not who I am.
Yeah, because all of this applies to Piratesoftware, but let's see if he recognizes it. Let's see if he puts 2 and 2 together on what's happening here.
It's just a conception.
I found some of that is also very cultural. So like, I've been to France before, and something I found in France is if you ask someone, what do you do? They don't tell you their job. They tell you their hobbies. They tell you their interests. They tell you things that they like. And you're like, no, but what do you do?
So he's blaming it on being a cultural thing. It's not, I don't have that problem. Everybody who's raised in America has that problem. It's an American problem. Oh, okay.
But here in America, you say, what do you do? And they're like, oh, this is my job.
Yeah.
So like, it's a defining factor here where it's not a defining factor there of what you do for a living, right? And I think...
I mean, yes and no. I feel like a lot of people will tell you that, but I don't think that's because it's a defining factor. I think it's just because that's the most common interpretation of that question. I think it's just because we ask questions differently. They probably have a different way to ask what you do for a living than what do you do. I think it's just a matter of that. we specify when we want to know the hobbies, where they probably specify when they want to know the job. That's probably all that that is. They will define themselves by what they do for work, though. But I don't even think it's a definition thing. I think it's just a nomenclature thing. When we say, what do you do, we mean job. In another country, when you say, what do you do, you mean like, what do you do for fun? So they just specify things differently. Just like when we say, I want a biscuit, then we mean that thing that you can get at McDonald's for breakfast. When they say they want a biscuit, they mean a cookie. Damn it. Of course, ran out of one shot away from killing him, and then I ran out of ammo.
I think that ties.
Yeah, so when you go over there and you say biscuit, it means cookie. So I think it's just a nomenclature thing. Because a lot of people, when you ask them, what do you do? Some people will just go, what do you mean? Do you mean like for work, or do you mean like for fun? Yeah, like some people will ask you to specify.
The emotional status to that much more, because like your
Absolutely.
title, your role is who you are here, and that's not the same everywhere.
It's a great point. I think it's absolutely cultural.
Yeah.
Anyway, what?
And I don't think either one is wrong. They're just different, you know.
Yeah, so the yogis would say that all identification on some level is wrong, whether you identify with being, yeah. So,
Interesting.
yeah.
How do you have a sense of? I guess you don't have a sense of self at that point. You wouldn't have one.
No, all you have is a sense of self. You don't have an identity. What's
So
the
sense of
difference?
self without identity. I understand. Okay.
No, you don't. You can't separate the ego from your identity. He's having trouble here. It means that you're comfortable with yourself. You have delusions of grandeur. You don't know who you are. So that's why this is so hard for you to wrap your head around.
I think I understand what you mean. So sense of self completely without identity. You don't have the extraneous factor defining who you are.
Absolutely, yeah.
Just the internal factor. Okay.
So the best way
makes more sense.
I would describe it as like,
Because that's how he sees himself. He sees himself as this thing. He doesn't see the extraneous factor of everybody pointing out what he actually is. So he has delusions of grandeur. He's confusing delusions of grandeur with self-identifying, with being comfortable with oneself.
if you're on a desert island for an hour and you close your eyes and you just exist on the desert island, and imagine that in that hour, what you experience is the entirety of your life.
Okay.
Right? So then you're not going to have a social, like you'll exist, you'll be there, you'll perceive things, you'll enjoy things, you'll be frustrated by things, but this overarching sense of identity that carries over from day to day, you just exist for that 1 hour. Right? You don't have that broader identity, you don't have a social identity. And then the really interesting thing is that if you really look at your life is a string of those hours. Right? Your life is just existing this moment and then existing, and then all.
I think you're losing him, Dr. K. I think you're losing him. He can't exist without validation. He doesn't understand.
All of our sense of identity is actually abstractions that are strung together. They're not based on our experiences.
They're external, external factors that we apply to that to tie them together.
Yes,
if that makes sense.
tying
Yeah,
together
okay.
is the right operative word, right? So when we string
He's trying.
together a set
He's
of
trying.
experiences, like a good example is someone who thinks they're a loser. There's no such thing as a loser.
They look at all the negative pieces and they say, "I'm a loser because."
Yes, they string
These individual
together
oscillations.
unique experiences, whereas those things are lost.
Yeah, if you were living on an island without an economy and without a social structure, there would be no such thing as a loser. But that's not the reality the rest of us live in. There is a such thing as a loser. Society has standards that you have to meet in order to function in that society. And when you can't meet those standards, this is my definition of a loser, and I think it's the right one. But if you can't meet those societal standards needed to function in that society, you have lost at the game of living in that society. You are by definition a loser. If you can't hold down a job, if you can't do the things society asks you to do in order to function in that society, get a job, pay your bills, etc., then you've lost. You are a loser. And it's not like you have to stay a loser forever. You can pick yourself up and you can fix that. But you are, at that moment in time, a loser. You have lost. And there's nothing wrong with accepting that and trying to change it. Because the first step towards identifying or solving any problem is admitting there is one.
Losses. So you can lose, but the identity of a loser is not something that is like a physical reality.
It's not real. Yeah.
It's not.
It's a perception issue. That's really all
Absolutely.
that is. Yeah.
And
Yeah,
when things,
100%.
when,
I'm going to agree to disagree with them on this one. I mean, they're taking the philosophical stance, but from a societal stance, you can absolutely be someone who's lost at the game of society.
when things are fed through the ego, when our ego is the one that is doing the
Again, he's tying it all back to he's basically framing all of this so it applies to Piratesoftware, but Piratesoftware isn't putting two and two together that, oh, you're talking about me right now.
perceiving, then we end up with all kinds of perception issues.
Yep. No, that makes a lot of sense. I can understand that now. Yeah, no,
That's you, bro. You have perception issues. He's talking about you, bro.
it's always interesting to see, like, perception drives reality more than anything else. It is absolutely the case. And you get people that are stuck in these weird perceptive loops where they're like, I suck. They're like, well, why do you suck? And they're like, because I made a mistake when I was 12. You know, it's like, but look at all the stuff you've done outside.
The opposite is also true, where they can never admit that they've made a mistake and they think that they're awesome all the time, even when they're wrong. Does that sound familiar? That sound familiar, bud? Does that sound like somebody we're talking about here?
Look at that, right? Look at all the things that you've done since then. What all the things you've accomplished. You like, you live on your own. You have your own place to live. You have your own job, whatever it's going to be. You've accomplished all these goals. You have a cool relationship. Yeah, but I made a mistake when I was 12. Like, okay, like you have to. That kind of a perception can tear someone down, even though it's not based in reality. It's based in just that, that little piece of a memory that doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I think like I'm on this shtick recently where over the last year I've been focusing a lot, like in my own life and with people that I work with, on perception. So I think perception is the one aspect of cognition that we tend to not
He is desperately trying to get him to realize that you have a perception problem, and he's trying to get Piratesoftware to like state what his perception is, but he's again trying to beat around the bush and get him to do it instead of calling it out, because he doesn't want to be confrontational. This is a conversation, not a therapy session, so he's not going to ask him those questions. But if he can get him to willingly talk about them, then he can have that conversation. He's just got to get it out of him first.
develop. Like
He's leading him to water, but he can't make him drink.
think about improving our perception. We'll think about improving our logic, even our emotional awareness. We'll do certain cognitive skills to improve things like become more productive, overcome emotions. The one thing that I think is actually the worst thing in society right now is that everyone's perception has become very, very weak. So like,
I agree. No, I fully agree with that. We see it mostly on social media. You see it mostly on social media. You have people that have extreme opinions rather than having nuanced approaches to things. They don't know how to perceive anything beyond the exact thing that they've hyper-focused on in that one area. They don't know how to see a greater picture beyond that. And it usually comes across as they don't want to, that they're being, jerks or anything like that.
God, the self-reporting right now, guys.
A lot of people who are in those positions don't believe that they're being jerks. They're just hyper-fixated on one little tiny thing, and their perception isn't wide enough to see.
It's you, motherfucker! Oh my God! The self-reporting here. The foreshadowing. Remember, this is all a year ago, and everything he just said is exactly how he's reacted to his mistake on Stop Killing Games and his mistake that he made during the WoW raid. Everything he just said will apply to him within a year of him saying it.
See the rest of the picture on that, and that's not like a malicious thing. A lot of the times, it's just a failure to expand the perception.
Yeah.
It sucks, right? It's made the internet really toxic.
it really has. So I think that there
Just replace the word internet with Piratesoftware, and everything applies. Everything he just said applies.
I would agree that social media, and especially like these short form pieces of stuff, don't add for so the smaller the bit of content is, the more our mind has to fill in to add context to it.
People are trained to get a dopamine rush from that short content when it's not positive, when it's destructive.
Yeah. So I wouldn't say they're trained. I'd say it's taking advantage of biological certainty.
God.
Sure. Yeah.
Dude.
Right. And it's not
I think that's a better way to say it.
So what we know is that, or my running theory, I think there's plenty of support for this, is that emotional oscillation is what keeps people
Dude.
engaged in content.
Okay.
So
I could see that.
if it's too dopaminergic, you'll actually develop tolerance. It's just like if you play a
burn 'em out.
video game for 10 hours, like you're not having fun on hour 8. The reason you continue to play is because of other mechanisms. It's not fun.
It's because of the dopamine rush. You're addicted. Especially if you're playing something like an RPG or something like World of Warcraft. All of the things that, again, all things that apply to Piratesoftware. Like, he keeps bringing up these factors. Like, he's not analyzing society, bro. He's analyzing you. Everything he said applies to you. You might not be having fun in World of Warcraft anymore, but you've been playing it for so long, you're so invested in it, you keep going until you get to the part that's fun again. Like, it becomes routine.
Right? It's like achievement, finishing out a particular round, grinding towards a particular goal. That's why they have all those things. Because if you really think about it, like especially like MMOs, right? Grinding is not fun. It's never been fun, but people will do it for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours
To get the thing at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
no, that makes sense. It kind of reminds me of kind of like hunter-gatherer sort of behavior.
How
right?
so?
So I'll give you an example. I go mushroom hunting, right? I do mycology. So we'll go and find like different mushrooms here in Washington State. Yeah, I do. I love it. It's super fun, right? I raise oyster mushrooms and lion's mane and shiitake and reishi mushrooms. Super fun for me to do. I really enjoy it. And doing mushroom hunting here along Washington State, we can actually go and get like king boletes. King boletes are awesome. But you're walking around in a swamp, and it's just gross everywhere. And then you see like holy crap, I got the big king bolete. They're like this big. They're huge, man. And like I've got a bunch of pictures of them. They're quite cool. I could send them over to you. But there's this moment where it's like gross, 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 and then you find it. And you're like, wow, I got that. And it makes me wonder, like, how far back does that kind of trait behavior go for humans? Because that's a survival trait.
Oh, absolutely.
That's a we survived because of this. And now it's being used to sell you things on the internet. But like,
yeah. So Thor, it always amazes me how intuitive you are about understanding some of these things. So like, there's actually a lot of really interesting studies that were done in the mid 2000s. The early studies on video game addiction really discovered that it is the denial of the reward that correlates with addiction. Right?
Yeah.
So some people kind of think about this as like random reinforcement schedule where like you don't always get, but it's not just the randomness. There's another part to it, which is if you look at like From Software games, like why are they so satisfying? It's because it's hard to achieve. Right? So like you wipe on a boss, you wipe on a boss, you wipe on a boss, and then you get, so the rush of dopamine that you get correlates with the amount of denial and difficulty.
yeah. And everyone who...
I don't know about that. I don't know if it comes from the amount of denial. You haven't been denied the thing. You're talking RNG when you say denial. So when I think when I think you're being denied the thing in a game, like he's mentioned there, that would be the equivalent of you running a raid or doing a boss in Diablo or one of those games that's got a random drop. So you did the thing you were supposed to do, but you were denied the thing that you wanted because RNG didn't give it to you. So now you got to do it again, and you got to keep doing it again until you're given the thing. You've been denied it over and over again. What makes FromSoft games fun, because they're so hard, isn't the RNG. It's the difficulty. It's the sense of accomplishment. If you kill that boss, you don't have to go back and kill him again. You weren't denied the victory. The victory itself is the reward. It's the overcoming a hurdle. It's the feeling of accomplishment from doing a hard task. And that's not something that you get from a game like Diablo, because a lot of the bosses in that game, they aren't hard, but you have to kill them over and over again to get the reward. So that's different. So I think he's misread that one. But from what I understand, Dr. K is not a gamer, so he's just kind of probably just going off internet knowledge. I'm not sure he's ever actually played a FromSoft game to get that experience himself and to see what it feels like.
beats that boss, when another person sees you do it, they're like, I beat that boss, and I understand how difficult that was.
Absolutely.
Props to you.
Right?
So it ends up being a cultural, like, kind of group thing.
Yeah, it's a sense of
absolutely.
accomplishment.
So we societally, we value human beings based on the difficulty of their accomplishments.
Yeah,
right? So it's
Right, so
absolutely.
it's
and
accomplishment.
so
Not
the real
denial of
challenge is that this principle video games have figured out how to take advantage of, but the real challenge, I'm just thinking about this concept of failure and making failure safe. Because like the whole thing that's really interesting is the more you fail in life, and if you feel like you're a loser, in the same principle of video games where the harder a boss is to beat, when you beat the boss, you feel really good. So the really interesting thing is that the more you've failed in life, the more I will see like a rebound. So when people are super, super behind and they get one break, you will be amazed at how quickly they can catch up.
Yeah, that's me. I got my ass kicked for a long time.
Yeah. And that's the
When? You were given your job, you're a Nepo baby. And then you failed at it, and then you were given another chance of it because, again, you're a Nepo baby. And from what I understand, your family never actually hurt for money the way the rest of us do. So you've always had a above middle class life. I'm not going to say you were rich, but you guys are always pretty comfortable financially. So that's not something you had to worry about. You never really had to worry about a job or education because, again, you had the money for the education. And the job was handed to you by your dad. And you went off on your own and it didn't work. And when you needed a job again, he handed you another one. And you could say, no, I got it the second time on my own. I mean, I'm sure they remembered who I was. Yeah, they know who you are. Of course they were going to give you that job back. Because there'll be repercussions if they don't, because they'll make your dad mad. It's not a good look to not hire or rehire the son of one of the guys who was there from the beginning. He's not just some Blizzard employee. He's one of the higher up guys. Okay? He's got influence, and he used it to get you a job. So when were you getting your ass kicked? You talking about in high school? Were you bullied? They shove you in lockers? Like, what happened? When are you getting your ass? Or are you playing the victim card and talking about the internet giving you shit? Like, when did you actually get your ass kicked? When did this happen?
The real tragedy is that people who think that they're losers in life, they think that there is a linear, like, you know, the race is linear, right? But it's not. You can you absolutely have this weird potential energy, which is like building up. So I'm thinking about one particular patient of mine who was like 32 years old when I started working with them. And they had struggled with addiction their whole life. I think they finished undergrad. And then in the span of like 2 or 3, so they were like basically not quite homeless, but they were.
I could picture him being bullied for him maybe being a furry. That's assuming that, like, people knew he was a furry or that he was a furry back then and it's not something he came to later. But even if you were bullied in high school, you've been out of high school for a long time. He made it sound like he's been getting his ass kicked for a very long time. His life has been so rough. That's what he means by it. He doesn't mean like physically getting his ass kicked. He means like life has been kicking his ass and he's just had such a rough life. But if I go back and we look at, because if I go back and we look at Piratesoftware's childhood home, you want to bet that he had a nice house, or you want to bet that he was living in a trailer? That he had to go through the harshest of financial aid and like get lucky with a scholarship in order to get into college, or did he just have to get his dad to sign a check? Like what are we really talking about here? Because for some people, that's the reality. I was raised in a trailer. I was raised in 2 trailers. I'm not afraid to admit it. Oh, he killed my guy. Okay, well there you go. You can kill my follower. I'm out. But yeah, I was raised in 2 trailers. I was raised in one for half my life, and then Dad finally got the money to get that second trailer because Mom wanted a double wide, and he didn't have the money for a double wide, so he rigged up some shit because he's a redneck, and that's what he did. So he bought a second trailer, single wide trailer, and then he bought a storage building, and he sliced the ends off the storage building and put it between the 2 trailers. So you had 2 trailers side by side like this, and then a little storage building he put in the middle like this. So my house was shaped like a capital letter H with a storage building in the middle with the ends cut off of it to be a hallway to connect the 2 trailers. And that was my life. That was my upbringing. Dad finally got a proper house, got a proper double wide. that looks like an actual house. One of those fancier double wide. It's not the one that looks like a trailer, but like the one where they bring in half the house and lay it down, and then they put in the other half. It was a Clayton home. If you know what those look like, you can Google them. But yeah, so he finally got one of those after we had moved out, or like our last couple years in high school. But for the majority of my life, it was one trailer, then another trailer in a storage building, and then finally the proper house. We did not have a lot of money. Going to college wasn't something I could do until I was 24, because if you apply for college before the age of 24, then they put your parents' information on that application. And the tax bracket that Dad was in meant that I wouldn't get as much financial aid money, and he'd have to cover some of the bill, and he didn't have the money to cover that bill. So so I had to wait. I had to wait until I could apply for college using only my financial information and not his, so that his income didn't lower the amount of financial aid that I could get. So I had to wait until I could get financial aid to fully cover my cost of college in order for me to go, because we didn't have any money to pay the remainder. So some of us had those kind of struggles where we started late for everything. I started school late because I had a late birthday. I started college late because my dad made too much money for financial aid, but not enough money to pay all our bills and actually pay for my college himself. So we were in that weird little middle ground. So some of us, that's the reality. We have to actually struggle. We've been getting our ass kicked by the system our entire lives and have to work our way out of it. You were handed everything. The system played to your benefit.
Financially dependent on someone that they were close to, like didn't have a.
But he doesn't understand that. He doesn't understand how good he had it. He thinks that that's just normal life to him. It doesn't register. So he thinks the hard part is the fact that he's not this big fancy game designer. He thinks that he was getting his ass kicked at work because, yeah, being a Nepo baby got him the job, but it apparently didn't get him the special treatment that he wanted. It didn't get him the position that he wanted. He could never work his way out of QA tester, and he could never make it doing this other stuff. And then you were handed a career in streaming because of the experience from Blizzard that you can't help but lean on at every chance you get. But you think you got your ass kicked because I don't get to work for Blizzard, so now I gotta be a streamer. Like, to you, being the streamer is the lesser of the two. When most people would kill to have the job that you have now. To just have that financial independence and the ability to be their own boss as a streamer. Yeah, he's completely out of touch with the position he's in and the reality for the rest of us. Like, he's ungrateful, for lack of a better phrase. He's just ungrateful.
Career, like...
The financial aid is dumb because my parents didn't help me pay for college, so why would they require that info? I don't know. If you're under the age of 24, you either have to prove that you live on your own, which I couldn't afford to do, but if you live with your parents, then they factor in your parents' income up until the age of 24. Now, you can be 24 and live with your parents and it won't matter. You don't have to prove that stuff. But yeah, my financial advisor's like, nothing we can do for you unless you either got to move out, live on your own, or you've got to get your parents to chip in. That's just how it works. I couldn't tell you why that's how it works. No idea. But yeah, I got screwed over because of that.
Just really, really bad.
Worst possible scenario, yeah.
Yeah, right. And then within 2 or 3 years, they wrote a novel. They became a therapist themselves.
So obviously that puts me quite a bit later than everybody else starting college. I'm starting at the age of, I'm 24 when I can start. So that puts me 28 finishing compared to most people who can start immediately after high school. So they're 19 starting college and they're in their mid-20s when they finish. I'm tapping on 30 when I fucking finish. So I'm starting on the back foot my entire life. I have a late birthday, so I'm starting school itself late. I'm starting regular school late. And now because of financial stuff, I'm starting college late. Yeah, so like my life is beginning when I'm almost 30, where everybody else's should have theirs established then. But Piratesoftware doesn't understand that. God, where is this guy?
got healthy, like got into a healthy relationship, and in like 3 years, like they went from like 0 to hero. You
Yep.
know, and like they've got a stable job, they do work that pays them well, and like they find like invigorating
Guess I'm
and,
going
and
for it.
gratifying. And in addition to working 32 clinical hours a week, they spend 30 hours a week working on their like fiction novel, and they
Damn
like
it.
wrote a novel.
Then it
And
pushed me
in
so I couldn't
3
jump
years,
in.
It's
It
just
was
amazing how much some.
Maybe I should apply to college again and see how much financial aid I could get. If you're above the age of 24, then they goes by your financial stuff and they don't ask for your parents' tax information. So you'll probably get more. You also get you also qualify for grants after the age of 24. So you can get like a Pell Grant, because that's what I ended up doing. I did 2 years at a community college and then the other 2 years at a university. So I did the college transfer. The Pell Grant paid for the community college. I did that on purpose. I could have went straight to the university, but then I'd have 4 years of financial aid debt. I have paid off all my student loans at this point because I only had 2 years worth of student loans to pay for. The Pell Grant paid for all of community college, which is why I waited till I was 24, because the Pell Grant, you qualify for that at 24, I think. I'm trying to remember. It's been a long time. Maybe they've changed the requirements, but I knew I had to be 24 to get that. The Pell Grant covered all of community college. And then when I went off to university, the Pell Grant covered a portion of it, and then financial aid covered the rest. But I wouldn't have qualified for the Pell Grant, and I wouldn't have gotten as much financial aid if I did it before the age of 24. So I had to wait, which sucks. But so again, I was late starting everything. You couldn't afford to keep going because so you got your associates, but you couldn't afford to keep going because they want to give me that good financial aid since my dad was doing good. Yeah, I was in the same boat. My dad wasn't really doing good, but he was doing, middle class. So we weren't like considered low income. He was above the line for low income. He was middle class. So you don't get any of the low income tax breaks, but he's lower middle class. So he's essentially like barely making ends meet. Yeah, he bought a house, so he's got a mortgage and he's paying all his bills, but there's not a lot left over. But you don't get any breaks at his tax bracket. This is why people like him end up voting for Trump and stuff, because they believe that they're tired of paying for the people below them with their taxes when they don't get any breaks where they're at. So he's in that tax bracket where they don't get any breaks. So he's seeing people who make less than him doing better because of all the breaks that they get. But he can't, and the people above him are getting breaks too, because once you reach a certain higher tax bracket, then you qualify for more breaks. So there's people in the middle class that get like nothing. So that's where you end up. The kids suffer too. My dad's also lower middle class and voted for Trump. That's why they vote for Trump, because the Democratic Party spends all their time focusing on the lower income people. And then people like my dad feel like those people already get enough. They already have so much available to them that we didn't get, son. So you vote for Trump because he says he's going to give tax breaks to the middle class. But the problem is they're kind of in a rock. They're kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place, because they never vote for the Democrats, because the Democrats focus on the lower income people and the minorities. Okay, but that doesn't apply to him. But the right says they're going to give you what you want, but then every piece of legislation they pass favors the rich. So they're also not giving you what you want. But you vote for them anyway because you feel like you got a chance when you vote for them, or you don't feel like you got a chance. Like the Democrats don't even pretend to want to give you what you want. At least the Republicans are pretending to care about your needs and give you what you want. So you vote for them hoping that one day you'll get a Republican that'll actually keep that promise. None of them ever do. But it's the hope that makes you vote. That rhymed. Write that down. But yeah, that's the thought process that he goes through and what leads him to vote for Trump.
This person was
It was like
behind.
that. Yeah. It's the same thing. Like, I've got a buddy on here, Primogen. He's another streamer, streams programming. He talks about it all the time. He was a meth addict, right? He was addicted to meth, and he managed to dig himself out of that. Went to work at Netflix. Awesome programmer. Now he's quit Netflix and now does this stuff full time and is like kicking a huge amount of ass. Dude is amazing.
Yeah.
And it shows you, and it's funny too, because people contact me. They're like, I struggle with addiction, and you can't really fix that for them. A lot of times you just say, hey, look over here. You can see that people can get out of this, and then you show them like it is possible. And I think that does a lot of good. A lot of the times it's just showing them it is possible to succeed, even in that very rough scenario that you're in,
Yeah.
So that's usually what I do.
I mean, you can help people out of addiction depending on what they're addicted to. I don't think like there's interventions like they show on TV where everybody just sits in a circle. We're doing it. I don't think that shit works. You just have to show them a way forward where they don't need that. You just have to show them that they don't need it. Sometimes you got to kind of trick them into it. So you take them on a trip or something. So you take somebody who's addicted to meth or addicted to something. I'm going on vacation with the wife if you want to come along. And you take them somewhere where they're not going to have access to that thing and hope that they agree to it without thinking about it, without thinking about the fact that they're not going to have their addiction. And you try to keep them so busy, having so much fun, just being comfortable, that by the time they realize they haven't had their fix or that they need it, maybe it's a little harder with meth or something that's physically addictive like meth. But if you got somebody with like a gambling addiction or something like that, and you take them on this trip, and they're having so much fun just hanging out with you that they don't realize that by the time they realize that they haven't been getting their addiction fix, it's already been like a week or two. So you can be like, dude, you've gone 2 weeks without gambling. You don't need that shit. You've gone 2 weeks without watching porn. You don't need that shit. Yeah, once you show them that they can function without it, then they'll be motivated to try to continue that. But just that's how you can help them. I don't like this idea that because someone's addicted that there's just nothing you can do for them.
So I'm like, look at Prime. He did it. You can. It is possible.
And comparing them to other people never works either. When you go, look at this guy, he did it. Look at this guy, he did it. Look at that doesn't work. You have to show them they can do it. I've had friends who were addicted to things. That's how you got to get them off it.
To do this, but you'll have to find your route.
Yeah, I think that's the challenge, right? Is that's where the ego comes. That's where the ego comes in, and the ego says, "They did it, but I can't do it because I'm different."
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. Is it ends up being you end up being your own worst enemy there. That's the best advice that I have for that one is then make a bet with yourself. Tell yourself, okay, I'll see if I can do it. I'm going to give myself 3 months. I'm going to see if I can. I'm going to put that to the side. I'm going to put all the fears to the side.
Okay. So take that advice, Piratesoftware. Make that bet right now. Bet that you can go a month streaming without mentioning that you work at Blizzard. You can go a month streaming without playing the victim card, where when something goes wrong, you can say, I fucked up. Make a bet. Make a bet with yourself that when you make a mistake, you can admit you made a mistake, or at least avoid the conflict with other people and feel the need to blame other people. Even if you believe that you were in the right, to just let it go, to just let them win. Like if you'd have done that during the WoW thing, even though you thought you were in the right, which to be clear, you weren't, but even though you thought that you were, why argue with your teammates during the raid about mana, and why go through all this like obsessive posting trying to prove that you were in the right? Just go a month without proving yourself and just exist. I'm not even going to say that you got to like walk the extra mile and like admit you were at fault or apologize, but just go a month ignoring that stuff. And just, if other people say it's a certain way, then just let them. Go a month. Make that bet. He ain't going to do it. He ain't going to do it.
I'm just going to do this. We're going to make a bet. If that is right, if I can't do it, then at the end of 3 months, I'll have accomplished nothing. But if at the end of 3 months I made even a step forward of progress, then it means that I can do this and I can keep doing this. And it's just a short bet, right? And what do you got to lose? Nothing, really. So people try when they're given that kind of idea, like, oh, I can just make a bet on this. I can try it. And they'll usually find that in 3 months, they've made some sort of progress. And they can look back and be like, now I've documented evidence. I'm kicking ass. I can keep moving forward. And they just keep making the bet. And I found that works really, really well, especially for people that don't believe in themselves. And it's usually because of like imposter syndrome. You have like an imposter syndrome scenario where someone just has that little voice in the back of their head that's telling them.
Self-reporting again. Imposter syndrome. I mean, isn't that what you would call someone whose job was in QA at LARPs as a developer? That they spent 2 years, that they spent years as a developer at Blizzard, even though they only worked in QA? Sounds like we got a little self-reporting going on here, guys.
You're not good enough. You're not going to be able to do this. And I find that that is more of a defense mechanism than anything else. They're trying to protect themselves from failure. So if you make
Oh my
that
God, the
bet
projection
and
is
say, hey,
unreal.
I don't believe you, but we'll find out if you're right or not. And it works, you know?
Yeah. So
How can you identify all of this and then apply none of it to yourself? Holy shit. Make a bet with yourself that you're going to apply everything that you just said to yourself. That you're going to acknowledge this.
it's really interesting because I think there's a lot of cool mechanisms at play there, and I love the strategy. So a couple of things that I'm kind of hearing. The first is that there's a really fascinating study about feeling overwhelmed. So a lot of times people think that feeling overwhelmed is a consequence of how many things you're dealing with, right? So if I'm dealing with 10 things, then I'm going to feel overwhelmed. Like, this is objective.
There's a scientific reason behind that. It depends on how many things you're dealing with. I think that they studied it and they were like, the human, like, after you're given so many choices, I think if a person has more than 10 or 12 choices in front of them, then their brain just like shuts down, and most people can't decide, so they end up just picking something at random. And you see that when people have Netflix. Like, there's so many choices on there that you end up just sticking to the same couple things. Like, you'll have people who will watch The Office on repeat forever, and they'll end up watching the same things over and over again, because even though they have all these choices for new things, if the algorithm doesn't feed them that stuff properly, they can't make the decision on their own. And that's like, it's an actual scientific study that showed that. It wasn't just like, some people are indecisive. Your average person, when they're given beyond X number of choices, I want to say it was either 8 or 12. Both of those numbers are saying out to me. But once you're given X number of choices, anything beyond that, and you just kind of shut down. The average person just can't make a decision with options that are more than that.
I think it's very subjective. It's very different for every person. Yeah.
So it's really interesting. But what there's a lot of research on anxiety, which shows that the degree of overwhelmed you feel does not correlate with the number of things that you have to deal with. So you can deal with one thing or 10 things. That's not that's the feeling of overwhelmed is what percentage of things that you are dealing with did you choose to deal with?
I agree with that.
So there's this concept called active challenges and passive challenges. Passive challenges are like aggro. Like, they're like challenges in your life that aggroed you when you were like walking down the street. So things like, my parents have cancer or something like that. Like, or some,
aggro, Jesus.
Yeah, that's bad aggro. Yeah. Like, some negative downturn in the economy, like things that you can't control.
Keeps trying to use these gamer phrases that don't exactly apply. I don't think you can aggro cancer, bro.
So the really interesting thing is that there's your mind keeps a ratio, like subconsciously, of stuff that I signed up for, stuff that I didn't sign up for. And when the majority of my life is doing things that I did not sign up for, this is what leads to burnout. So the really crazy thing is, and feeling
leads to a lot more than burnout, but yeah, feeling overwhelmed, depression, anxiety, etc.
Overwhelmed, and then like not actually being able to deal with those things. So the crazy thing is that if you're feeling overwhelmed in life, the right move is not to do less. It's actually to take on more that is intentional.
Things that you can control.
Absolutely.
Yep, I'm in that boat right now. You guys know that I now have 2 car payments and 1 car because I got hit by an Amazon truck and my insurance wouldn't cover the full cost of the previous car. So I still have 2 years worth of payments left on that. And damn it! What the I don't understand. Like, I just run into a person and just none of my bullets ever hit, ever. God, I gotta quit playing this mode. I'm so fucking ass at this. Can't even keep up with my kids. But yeah, I am in that boat right now where I have 2 car payments and 1 car, and I'm not even sure how I'm gonna pay for it. So I have to take a second job. I'm just gonna have to work more to pay for this bill for the next 2 years. Because I don't know I don't know how else to get the money. So it's not do less, it's do more. and I can't work overtime at my other job, so got to get another job. Got a DoorDash guy. I got to do more. I got to do more to keep the money coming in. I got to do more.
Absolutely. So if there are like 5 things that I'm dealing with that are outside of my control, to take on 2 things will actually improve my performance over time.
I actually really like that. That's not something that I've ever thought about in that direction. I think that's
You've never had financial problems and needed to take on a second job in order to pay for them. Again, you don't have the same problems that we do. You live a privileged life. You have lived a privileged life and continue to do so.
really interesting. Because usually when it's something like that, I had never drawn the correlation between things that you did control or did not control. And it's true. I've seen that for myself many times, right? Where I'm dealing with a whole bunch of things and I can handle a whole bunch of projects, spin a bunch of plates, no problem. And then you have something that's like throwing a wrench into the machine and it's like, oh, you know, it's like now I got to handle this thing. You know,
Yeah.
It's so irritating. Yeah.
And I think it's
No, I get it.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was saying I get that. That actually makes complete sense. And it's not something I ever thought about. Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
so
that's good.
I think when when I first heard what you've been up to, it sounds like you had done this Ferret Reserve, this game jam. You're working on their publishing house. It also sounds like you're streaming. I don't know if you have like a job.
This is the job. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you're a full time. I didn't know.
Oh yeah.
So it's interesting because someone will look at that and they'll think like, oh my god, like this person is doing so much. How is Thor
Yeah.
superhuman? Well, he is. He does have that.
I sleep 5 hours a day. That's the superhuman part. That's the mutant. Right?
But I think that's what I tend to find is that when people take on more, they tend to do better. And the
Yep.
other really interesting thing is that when you give someone this 3-month challenge, it moves them out of the realm of cognition and into the realm of action. And
That makes
any
sense.
shift from cognition to action is almost always a good one. And when people are just stuck in their own
Except when you're Piratesoftware and that action is crashing out on the internet to try to prove everybody on the internet wrong as they continue to point out your flaws and you continue to not accept those flaws.
head, like what's going to happen is your mind will play through all these different scenarios that'll be hypothetical, but you won't ever actually get additional data to counter your perceptions.
That's the biggest problem with it. Is it's you have to have evidence. Otherwise, the perception is just going to take over. Like, if you're sitting there telling yourself you can't do it all day and you don't have any evidence to the contrary, you're probably going to believe it. If you give yourself even a moment to have any type of evidence, you can defeat that immediately. You're like, well, what about that? And then it just disappears. It floats away.
So I think it's challenging because depending on your mind will shape the evidence. So what happens for a lot of people is that, they will try things and in their mind they acted, but it's so challenging because our mind can shape our experience.
Yeah.
And there are ways to kind of get around that, or there are ways to clean out what our experience is so that it's more objective as opposed to not being shaped by the mind. But
That's a really tough one, to be honest with you. Changing it from like the subjective opinion to the objective opinion of what's going on, especially when you're the actor involved in that, right? When you're the one taking the action, that's really difficult for people.
yeah, so it turns out it comes back to perception. So if you look at like any action that you take, there is the objective reality, and then there is what your mind adds to the reality. So what is the significance of someone not calling you back today? What is the significance of an email from a company that says, hey, we really liked you, but we just don't have a position that fits at the moment?
Yep.
And some people will interpret that as, oh, they don't like me. And some people will interpret that as, they do like me, I have value, but they don't have a position that fits.
Yeah.
So some
And
people
And which one do you think Piratesoftware would do?
why I like analytics so much. Like that's something that I drive a lot of our business is based on analytics, right? And I do that specifically because it's an immutable fact. It's one of those ones where
Notice how he sees himself as the employer and immediately takes the position of the employer instead of the person applying for the job. So he didn't like everything the doctor just said did not register there. The doctor wants him to take the position of the person applying for the job and not getting it. And he just goes, well, this is why in my business I do. He just immediately took the position of the person getting the job so that the threat of rejection is gone for him. It's not a thing that he has to deal with.
it's like you have this thing that is evidence of what's going on beyond whatever your perception could be. You could
Oh my God! Again, thank to the pirates. Thank to the fucking WoW drama. Thanks to the fucking stop killing games thing. He's about to say a bunch of shit that applies to him and will apply to him within a year. And let's see how he says those people should handle it when presented with that evidence compared to what he did.
You could have perception that may back it up and move in different directions for ideas you can try, but you have solid evidence of what is going on.
How do you use analytics?
I use analytics for anything that we want to do in terms of business direction. So anytime.
So he has the right answer. He knows what he should be doing. But when all those things happened to him, when he was put in that position, all within a year of this video, none of it. None of the advice that he would give other people, none of the stuff that he says he knows you're supposed to do is stuff that he did. Just didn't register. He doubled, tripled, and quadrupled down.
Time I'm doing anything, I find out if people like that thing. We kind of do tests on it and be like, hey, I talk about this thing, or we look at some game or anything like that. If I'm getting a sponsor in, right, and we play a sponsored game, I go and show them analytics and be like, this is how many people wanted to engage with this. People may find that a game is really fun to watch. They just don't want to play it. Or people may find that they want to stop watching me to go play the game. So like, if you're streaming a video game that you've been sponsored for and suddenly half of your audience disappears, a lot of streamers would probably freak out. They'd be like, oh no, maybe people hate this. But if you go and look at the analytics on SteamDB for the game, you may find that the amount of players in the game has skyrocketed as a result of this. They just stopped watching you to go play it because they thought it was compelling enough. So you have to use analytics to kind of get rid of whatever worried perception you can have, because it ends up being a fact, right? And you can find that out. As an example of this, is quite funny. One of the best watched videos that I have on my YouTube is me playing through Outer Wilds. But one of my worst stream days was Outer Wilds, because at the beginning of that stream, I told people, don't watch me play this if you haven't played it before, because it'll ruin the game for you. And they left. It was like 2/3 of the audience just left. So it's like the worst viewership I've ever had for that kind of a stream, but the best YouTube video, because after they played the game, they wanted to go see how I experienced it after they could no longer be spoiled. Yeah. So you have to use analytics. You have to. Otherwise, you run into these weird walls where
the question he asked you was not about analytics. You're doing this thing again where you like obfuscate onto a different point and like change the topic and make it about something else and don't address the thing that's said. Because that thing he said, it applies to you and you didn't address it at all.
I would have a negative perception. I'd be like, oh, well, I should never touch that game again. But like, no, you should.
I've been listening to him ramble about analytics for the last 2 minutes when the doctor was basically asking about like taking responsibility for something and how do you handle things that are outside of your control, like getting rejected at a job with analytics. Oh, really? That's how you handle things that are out of your control? Okay, cool. So you're driving and an Amazon truck runs a stop sign and it plows into the side of your car. What are the analytics that are going to get you out of that situation that's out of your control? You didn't know that Amazon truck was going to run that stop sign and hit you. I didn't know it was going to happen to me. What analytic could I use to present to the insurance company to make them pay for the entirety of that car, to help me out of this situation? What are the analytics there? See, none of this shit applies. None of this shit applies. Gap insurance isn't a thing I even knew about until they told me about it, and it sounded like a scam, but that's not analytics. I can't call up the insurance company and goes, well, actually, statistically speaking, X number of people get into car accidents, and statistically speaking, you should have known this was going to happen to me, so you should know that you have to pay for it. And full coverage, statistically speaking, pays on average more than the value of the car. But that's like, none of that shit's gonna help. None of that shit's gonna help. None of that's gonna help. You are at their mercy. That's what the question was about. Shit that's beyond your control, and how do you deal with shit that's beyond your control? And he completely turned it into a situation where he was in control. Because he brings up getting rejected by an employer, and Piratesoftware equates that to being the employer. Oh, and yeah, I've had to reject people doing that too, but I reject them with analytics. You have to use analytics. Yeah, like he's taking the position of the person in control in the scenario he was given, where he was told he wouldn't be in control. He has to be in control. He has to. He can't function like the rest of us, where we're at the mercy of something else, because this is how a privileged mind works. Of somebody who's always had the things that they wanted and has always had things given to him. He had his job given to him. His family's been able to provide him the things he's wanted. He's never not had some level of control over those parts of his life, where most of us don't have control over those parts of our life. Unless you're lucky enough to get a place that's rent controlled.
You should learn about that, you know?
Yeah, so it was interesting. I gave a talk at, I think, GDC about 2 or 3 years ago. I forget.
Yeah.
But I was talking to some advertisers about sponsorships. And one of my beliefs is that I know a lot of sponsors want a 60-second thing within the first, 2 minutes of the video.
Yeah.
But I was explaining to them that I think that if you really look at, user behavior, a sponsorship at the end of a video that is tightly tied to the content of the video will do way better than something at the beginning, because everyone's like, we want more eyes, but those eyes are not engaged, right?
Yeah.
So people are like, oh, this is we'll just skip past it. Whereas if you have a sponsorship that is at the end of the video related to the topic of the video, I suspect that the user behavior will be a lot better, in terms of what people like. Even though fewer people will watch the ad, their ability to engage with whatever the advertiser or the sponsor.
Yeah, 100 people watching an ad that's relevant to them, where 30 of them might buy the product, is better than 1,000 people watching an ad unrelated to them, where 2% of them might actually buy the product, and 99 or 98% of them are just going to skip the ad. So, what he's saying is true, but advertisers, they play the numbers game where they just cast the widest net. They can't take that risk, because you could also be wrong. So they don't want to take that risk that your audience is definitely going to buy and let you put it at the end, where we could put it at the beginning, and then people outside of your audience, or the most people possible, might buy it, because more eyes means more chances, and they don't want to take less chances.
Ultimately wants may actually be way higher. So I think there's a lot of challenges with the way that we get data. And we see this a lot in the content creator, burnout management stuff that we do, where the internet gives us, and platforms give us a lot of data that I don't think is actually helpful. They just give it because that's what they can measure. This is the big problem with dating apps, is that they can't measure the things that actually correlate with success in a relationship. They can just upload pictures and you can write things about yourself, but there are no studies that show that making a good bio correlates with relationship. I mean, I'm sure that would be true in a sense, because it's got to get you more dates. But if you look at the things that correlate with success in relationships, they're not things that dating apps can detect or select for.
You also get a lot of really weird gotcha images and things online that I find, where people will be like, look at how many times I had to send out a thing before I got one reply. And it'll be like, look, 5,000, dates, and it's one relationship. And I think those are pretty misleading as well, because it doesn't show you the full story there of each of those interactions, how many swipes you did or anything. None of that matters, frankly. Well, I find that to be very...
I think it's incredibly misleading for a whole host of other reasons.
Oh yeah, there's a lot of reasons that it's misleading, but I think that one is demoralizing to people in a way that's weird, really bad. It's not benefiting anyone to put that out.
Have you heard of this concept of the missing reason?
I mean, he's not wrong. There's a lot of bots on those sites, but if you're trying to find love on one of those sites where you're just swiping on people and not actually interacting beyond that, where you're just looking at their pictures and swiping left or right and you're not interacting beyond that, then you're not on that. The people on those apps aren't looking for relationships. So chances of finding a relationship on those apps is going to be relatively low, even if you have a good interaction, because the other person's intent there was never to be in a relationship. It was to fucking get laid. What is that? Why is that here now?
Reasons?
No.
So this is so fascinating. I got to send you all this link. This is one of the most brilliant psychological explorations that I've seen.
I sent you the mushrooms, by the way.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Try that.
So there's if you look at posts online, especially about relationships,
expeditions.
There's this great psychologist, I think, or maybe it's not even a psychologist, who wrote this book about the missing reasons.
Cool.
So it is, so basically when someone shares a story online, there will be things missing from the story. And the things that are missing from the story are really where the money is. right? So someone will say, oh, like I've been married for 30 years. And
Yeah, this is why it's sometimes fun. The wife wants to do this as content, and maybe we will, where we just go to Reddit and read posts from Am I the Asshole? Because you're not reading what they write, because you're getting one side of a story, and of course they're going to paint themselves in the best light possible. But you're reading the situation and trying to figure out, like, well, is what you're saying something like you're trying to figure out the parts that they didn't tell you to determine if that person is an asshole or not.
And then my partner just woke up and just walked out of the house and took my kids. They refused to talk to me. They blocked me on all my numbers, you know, like, and then
It's a good idea for a segment. I may do that when she gets back, because she does that for fun all the time. She'll just be on her phone and randomly be like, so this motherfucker did this, and this, and he wants to know if he's an asshole. Is he an asshole? Like, am I just mad at him? Am I being biased? Like, am I just giving the woman perspective? Like, you know, what's the guy's perspective? Does this sound like an asshole to you? Yeah. And then we got to analyze it and stuff. So, I think there's entire YouTube channels dedicated to just reading Am I the Asshole? I think there's a few that just do that. But I may do that as content with her when she's on, because she doesn't get as into the political or gamer drama. And right now that's like all that's going on. Like, she's a little more invested in the Ethan stuff because of how crazy those people are acting, but she doesn't feel like she's got anything else to add to that conversation until something else crazy happens, because she's kind of said all she wants to say about them. She doesn't give a fuck about Piratesoftware, so that's why she's not joining the streams for these, because she doesn't know anything about video games. I mean, she can laugh at him for being a narcissist, and she believes he is a narcissist, just from watching clips and, you know, just seeing his behavior. But she doesn't know anything about it. Like when you start going over the WoW stuff and you start talking about stop killing games and stuff, she has no idea what any of that stuff's about, so she doesn't even know what we're talking about, so she just kind of gets lost in the sauce there. So I got to find stuff that she's interested in order to get her back on board here. And right now, she's right. There are no other dramas going on. Not really. She likes the black people stuff when we cover the black guy. And that white girl that we had to slow her speed down so she sounded like a normal person when she talked. That was a fun one. So stuff like that. Ian and Anissa literally fled the country, so I don't know if the drama will continue much more at this point, unfortunately. When did they flee the country? How did I miss this? What happened? Anyway, I'll continue this while you post that up for me.
and they'll like frame things in some kind of like victim mentality, but there's like stuff missing from the story.
Again, he's just constantly calling out like behavior of Piratesoftware, and Piratesoftware doesn't register any of it ever.
Yeah.
And so I think it's
That
all
is
this.
so common.
Yeah, so common.
Yeah.
And even in our own lives, if you really pay attention to the ego, the cool thing about the ego is that the ego believes it's logical, but it's very selective. So the nature of the ego is to ignore information that does not align with what your ego wants in that moment. And so and even Carl Jung, I know I'm kind of bouncing all over the place, but Carl Jung, I think, discovered this when he was talking about this concept of the shadow, which is even within our own psychology and in our own psyche. There are parts of our psyche that we actively suppress or ignore. And if you want to grow, those are the things that you need to confront, because that's really where the problem is. And if you kind of think about if there's a part of life that you're not looking at, if that part of life is not fixed, you will never be able to fix it. And so a lot of times people don't realize that, they're living this life that things are going bad, things are going bad, things are going bad, and they feel like they're a victim because this person screwed me over, this person screwed me over, this person screwed me over. But
You know what's the funniest thing about that?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go for it.
I think the funniest thing about that is you can equate it to League of Legends or any competitive game.
Oh.
If you're in bronze, it is more likely that you're going to blame the rest of
Here for the free experience. I'm going to take a quick break, and this time you guys will get to be right back screen, so you guys finally get to see that, because I'm only going to go take a piss. So this will only take me a second. I don't want to pull up separate content just for this. So be right back. All right, there we go. Sorry. Told you it wouldn't take long. 30 seconds. Okay. Let's get back into this, though. All right. They moved to Canada. They might have addressed it on their podcast, but I remember Ian trying to act cool and say he wished he was in LA during the riots. So, oh yeah, I did see that clip where so he could throw a grenade back at the guy. I didn't realize that was because they had moved to Canada, just fled the country. I don't know why you need to flee the country. All of your problems are on the internet. Like, it's crazy. They get harassed on the internet, and they flee the country. You can't run from the internet. Like, they're still going to find you. All your harassment's online. The online harassment, which I say with air quotes because it's just criticism, but the online harassment is still going to continue online. So as long as, it doesn't matter where you go, as long as you're still getting on the internet, you're still going to see it. All you got to do is log off. Ironically, in this whole drama, like the person who would have justified reason to flee the country or move would be Ethan, because they're sending shit to him in real life. He can log off, but CPS still shows up at his house. Skulls still show up at his house. So he should probably move. Is it possible they fled to avoid getting sued for Creator Clash 3 related stuff? No, you can still be held accountable. That stuff still happened while you were here. Doesn't matter. Like, you don't have to be in the same country to sue somebody, so that wouldn't matter. I mean, Billy Mitchell won a lawsuit against Carl Jobs because of shit that happened online, and they were in separate countries. So, like, that's not going to save you. So I don't understand the reasoning behind moving to Canada or fleeing the country.
Of your entire team, for your team failing, when you're not focusing on you doing better at the video game, which is going to increase your elo.
So
this happens all the time in competitive games. Like, 100%. If you're in bronze, you deserve to be in bronze.
I've got a cool paper to show you.
Hell yeah.
Give me a second.
But that's really what that is like you need to focus on improving yourself and improving your own performance there, not tearing down your teammates. So like, it's not going to help you.
This is, I got to find it, but.
What do you mean it's always my team? No, it ain't.
It's, come on, where's this paper? I know I've got it. Come on.
There we go. I got another one.
You still can't carry 4 people? No, that's true. You can't carry all of your team all of the time. But in times where you could make a difference, your performance is what matters. And you'll win more often that way. And then you'll climb.
So I gotta do some shenanigans on my stream setup because I got a screen share with you on Discord.
Shenanigans. I can watch the stream. I can do that if that's easier.
Well, I want to show people too. So let me see if I can do this. Browser plus 2. Does this work? Oh, sweet. Oh my God. Dude, mods for the win. Fucking, this is great. So now I can still see you and show this. So this is great stuff. So, cognitive flexibility and decision making predicts expertise in the MOBA esport League of Legends. So look at this. So you're saying that, like, you know, when you blame your teammates all the time. So there's one thing that correlates with rank, okay? So data was analyzed by a means of correlation and multiple regression analysis. Results showed that cognitive flexibility was positively related to rank percentile, p less than 0.011. So this is a pretty big confidence interval. So I don't know exactly how they measure this, but it seems like it correlates a lot with rank because this number is big. But it's very wide.
Interesting.
Right? So, and what we're talking about is like the ability to...
What? Why was I logged out?
Pay attention, like the ability to not think the way that you're thinking. That's what cognitive flexibility is.
Oh, that's right. They said they were shutting the servers down.
Teammates, there's no cognitive flexibility, right? My team sucks. My team sucks. My team sucks. They're not flexible. Let me just.
Damn, I was one level away from getting the.
If you turn around and you go, but maybe I suck, and then
Yes. Now have that moment in current day. Apply this to yourself. Yeah, server's not responding. Okay, so. All right, I guess we'll go play something else. I'm going to do some nice, relaxing golf.
You work on it. You go and look at the analytics and you find out where were you sucking. You find out, like, if your build is even making sense. Were you building, you know, magic into MR, right? You know, basic stuff.
So what you're saying is if someone can show you with analytics and numbers and facts that you suck and that you were wrong, you'll say, oh, I suck. And then you'll make the appropriate adjustments. You're saying that's the correct behavior, right? From your own mouth. Huh. Neat.
Like that. Like you have to think about your own performance, because you can't control your teammates' performance, but you definitely can control yours. And that's the best thing you can start at. And then if you're doing that, you can
apply all of that to the WoW drama. You can't control your teammates' performance, but you can control yours. And all your teammates were saying your performance was what needed to be controlled because you keep roaching. Wow, amazing.
You can set an example for your teammates, and maybe they modify their behavior well, and then you win.
Yeah,
so maybe they modify. It's so wild how he can accurately identify a problem when it's about other people, but when when the same problem happens to him, he can't fucking see it. His ego just will not let him. This is fucking wild to watch.
I want to make this video one day. I've been recording myself playing Dota and recalibrating on rank. I mentioned this on stream a couple times, but I basically had an experiment. So a lot of people will say, like, if you want to climb in video games, like, don't mute everybody because you'll tilt.
Doesn't work. That doesn't work.
So I did this cool experiment. I had 2 accounts, one that I use for streaming so that it doesn't leak my Steam information, and then I have a second account, but Dota recently cracked down, so I stopped doing this. But so I basically calibrated to both at the same time, but in one,
so you tried to be the most toxic teammate. Is that what you're saying? And then not? Are you saying that you played both sides, or you like?
No. So I played. Oh. I did my calibration matches because you can recalibrate like every year. So I did my calibration matches on both accounts, but in one I was muted, and in one I was talking.
I thought you were trying to say you were toxic in one and not toxic in the other. I was like,
no, I mean,
wow.
I could be toxic. I'm sure that would be a greater MMR variation, but like it's amazing. I mean, I think it was like an 800 MMR difference, which is, like a couple of ranks. I want to say it's like 20 percentile points.
Unhealthy gamer BG. It's finally happening.
And when you learn how to communicate in games, like it's amazing. You will gain like 1,000 MMR. And there are all kinds of things, speaking of...
Yeah, it's a team-based game. Communication's important. I scream this all the time in Call of Duty. You probably have better luck with that in Dota. I'd say maybe even better luck in something like League of Legends. Although I hear that game's pretty toxic. I don't know. I don't play MOBAs. They just weren't for me. But it's amazing that having better communication in a team-based game makes you better. I don't know how many times I need to keep saying this to people.
Relationships, it's like the same stuff. Like you got to learn, like one thing that I found is instead of telling like my carry player to like stop going to some part of the map after they die 3 times in that part of the map, I will ask them, hey, do you want me to place wards so you don't die there again, or do you want to play around where I have wards? Like, tell me what you want me to do. And like 90% of the time when I ask them, what do you want me to do, and I point out like, hey, I can play around this and place wards where you keep fucking dying, do you want me to do that? What they'll actually do is just switch to the right part of the map.
Yep.
But if you tell
make it
them,
a question
hey,
that is posed to them.
Oh, I'm glad you used my emote in chat, which cool. My emote on Twitch. Also, do I get emotes on YouTube? Now that I'm monetized? I should probably check into that. But getting them on Twitch is something I've had for a while, been an affiliate for a while. But I'm glad you used it because my emotes are now actually showing up in the bot. It used to just say the name of it so I can see it. But B, I've also got, they're on YouTube. How do I do them on YouTube? I don't think I've set up any. Yeah, I see the basic ones. I see YouTube, people, nature. What's this one? Symbols, objects, activities, YouTube. They would be under YouTube. Yeah, I don't know if I can do custom ones on YouTube. Oh, you were thinking Discord. Yeah, they're in Discord. Okay, because I don't see where to do them on YouTube. But they're kind of cool that I got them on Twitch. But I haven't looked at my emotes on Twitch in a very long time. Nobody ever uses them. I have more than just that one. I have a few, but no one was using them. But a lot of them were just me throwing something up there to have some kind of, to have some something on stream, something in chat for. Fuck, I fucked that up. To have something in chat for the people who paid. And they were supposed to be placeholder. I was supposed to make something better later, and I just kind of never did. So I'm open to ideas for emotes. Anyway.
Dumbass, stop going there. You keep dying. They'll
be
keep
like, I'm
going
going to
there.
do it twice as much
Yeah.
now. And that's what they do. Yeah. And that makes sense. Because like if you had somebody come and attack you for playing the way that you are when you were failing, especially in the most vulnerable moment where deep inside you know that you're screwing up and you want to lash out at everyone around you, and then you give them a target to lash out at. Of course they're going to lash out at you. That's just going to spiral the whole team out.
It's so bad.
You can't do that. Yeah.
It's amazing. Sometimes I'll have teammates who are so good, and I wonder how are they at the same rank as me, and it's because they're just so toxic.
Yeah.
And they can't prevent tilt, and
tilting is probably the worst. It's funny because there's a meme inside of League for a long time, which is like, oh, it's 4v6 right now. You know, that kind of a thing. It's like there's one of your players has moved to the enemy team. When you're saying that, you're the one on the enemy team.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Again! That is the exact attitude that he had during his WoW raid, where he's blaming his teams. And, I don't matter. What am I supposed to do for you? It's just, yeah, you were the enemy team, bro. Amazing how you can just. Oh my god, dude! How you can identify this shit until it happens to you, and then you fall into it, and then double, triple, and quadruple down.
The really crazy thing that I've started to realize is I really
like how does none of it register? This is why I say he has the lolcow gene. How does none of it register? How? When these clips exist, when people can just show you shit you've said in the past. It's not like, oh, I forgot I said that. It's not like, oh, well, I misremembered something. Everything you do is documented, live, and recorded. We can just show you what you said. Holy shit.
really do think we can learn just about everything that we need in real life from video games. Like, I think the microcosm of gaming, I think, is sufficient. Like, the stuff around cognitive flexibility, how to not tilt. I mean, here we are talking about making it safe to fail, right? And what's the purpose of that? It's because we don't realize that we're, like, tilted IRL. Like, feeling overwhelmed, you're tilted IRL. You know, like, we blame our teammates, right? So my situation in my life is not my own making. It's a bad upbringing. It's bad friends. It's bad spouses. And there's a ton of data that shows that adverse childhood experiences correlate with trauma and depression and things like that. So people do sometimes have bad situations. But even the ability to rise above those situations depends a lot on these, like, core video game skills.
Yeah. I think that's actually true.
He's trying his best to, like, identify his problems and relate them in ways that he'll understand, hoping that he'll put two and two together, and he just never does.
I think it's funny because video games taught me a lot growing up, you know.
What did they teach you?
All kinds of things. Like, to be real with you, being able to solve through problems, being able to analyze problems and find different ways to do it, because the game doesn't care what your emotional state is. The game is always the same. So if you're going to approach a problem emotionally, largely the game doesn't care about that. You're going to lose. You're not going to solve the puzzle. So it taught me to take the emotional feeling that I had, put it on the side for a moment, take a logical approach to it, and then kind of work my way through that. That's where I learned that. It was from games. That's why I do that today, and I do that for every...
But you don't do that today. Oh my god, listen to what he says he does. And how he does it for everything. Is that what you're about to say here? Because you don't. But listen to this.
Put it on the side for a moment, take a logical approach to it, and then kind of work my way through that. That's where I learned that. It was from games. That's why I do that today.
Yeah, logically, when someone showed you a video of you saying a thing and could show you that you made a mistake, logically, when you'd make a mistake, you would be the one to admit you made that mistake and move on. But you don't do that. All logic goes out the window once he gets emotional and pissed off.
Today, and I do that for everything now. And I do it because I learned it from games when I was younger. And that allows me to go like, all right, I'm getting pissed off. I'm going to take a minute. And we're going to look through this logically. And I'm just going to take that emotion, put it off on the side. And when you go through it logically, like logically process that, you largely aren't going to be angry at the end of that conversation. it just kind of goes away. You know, and I think we talked about that last time we had a talk too, was the ability to just kind of take a step back and wait. And it's what I learned from games early on, very early.
So I'm kind of curious, Thor, do you have any thoughts about, so some people are able to like grind a game for hours and hours and hours,
I can do that.
and then they have difficulty grinding IRL for hours and hours and hours? Do you
Okay.
have any sense how
This is a
to
wash.
translate being able to grind in a game into grinding in real life?
Immediate emotional feedback or immediate feedback from the game. The game tells you instantly when you get rewarding or when you accomplish a goal or don't accomplish a goal. The best way I can look at this is homework. If you give a student a online test or an interactive test where they are immediately getting feedback from the answers, I find that to be much more compelling a lot of the times for many people than giving them homework where they have to write it all down and they find out the answers the next day. They're less engaged with that because it doesn't give them immediate interactive feedback. And it's funny because I see that more often with people that have ADHD. I don't know if there's a correlation there, but that seems correct to me.
See,
Yeah, and that happens to you on the internet. You make a mistake, and the internet immediately reminds you of it, or immediately tells you what your mistake is. You say something wrong, you misunderstand a thing, you misread a situation, and the internet will immediately correct you. And that's how you're supposed to learn, right? Isn't that what you're saying? That's easier to learn? So why don't you learn? Why do you keep doing this? I don't understand.
what more often?
That people are less engaged. If they have ADHD, I find them to be less engaged if they're not getting immediate feedback on the things that are going on, that the actions they're performing.
Just restarting
Absolutely
this.
a
This is a fucking
correlation. So
wash.
we know that the dopamine reward circuitry in ADHD, so their ability to delay gratification is impaired because the time window between action and reward is very, very tight. So
Yeah,
the
I think
flip-
that's what games give you, frankly.
yeah, so that's really interesting because there's let me see if I can pull up some more research.
Sure.
I want to show you something.
Yeah, it's more than just dopamine. It's just all feedback, whether it's good or bad. It's all feedback.
Where's that Haggard paper?
That's why it always made me laugh. Is one of the memorable things that I remember from Earthbound was Earthbound had a section of the game where to progress the story, you had to sit behind the waterfall for like 3 minutes
Okay.
and do nothing.
Okay. That's tough.
And it was so, in today's world, I feel that many gamers can't do it. That's a difficult one. Like I really feel it's not a thing that's like super common. Where waiting is the solution, which is quite funny.
yeah.
The sad
So
rebellion.
like I always wondered, like in games like Earthbound, how did they ever figure that out?
The game tells you. And that one, the game tells you. Now, I'll admit, in something like Castlevania 2, Simon's Quest, where you have to wait at the... maybe he's talking about that game, where you had to wait at the waterfall and crouch and have a certain item in your inventory and wait for... it was like 2 minutes. It was a while, and then a tornado would randomly come pick you up. And the game didn't do anything to tell you that. In Earthbound, you're playing as the monk, whose name is Pooh, and... this is also in the Angry Video Game Nerd video on it. But you're supposed to wait there, and the game tells you it's a test of patience. And while you're waiting, what he doesn't tell you is during that 3 minutes, there's a cutscene where the NPC keeps asking you what you're willing to sacrifice, and then you just sit there and wait, and then it takes away your arms, takes away your legs, blah, blah, blah. It's all a test of patience and what you're willing to sacrifice. It was a mental thing.
So, so like I played. Did you play the old Castlevanias?
oh yeah.
Oh, he is going to
You
bring
played
this.
yeah.
Simon's Quest.
Yeah, he brought up Simon's
I-
Quest. Okay.
Don't know specifically which ones I played, but I played Castlevania when I
So
was
like
younger.
Castlevania 2 is just an amazing game. So it was
So
like
now I
it
want to
was,
go back and play these.
it was
That's subjective, but okay.
I think the first game where I don't know if you played like Symphony of the Night.
I did.
Yeah,
Yes.
so,
Symphony of the Night,
so
yes.
Simon's Quest, I think, was like the first game. I guess they had Metroid, so they sort of like turned the level-based Castlevania into like a more Metroidvania kind of game.
I don't know if I played Simon's Quest.
That was not Simon's Quest. Castlevania, Symphony of the Night was the first one to. They kind of had some of those elements, and they kind of had some of that in Simon's Quest, but not really.
It's so good, dude. And there was this
That
one
was
part of
a little
the game where you have to find some item, and then you have to walk up to a wall.
Yeah,
you
and then
have
just
to
sit there.
Duck in front of the wall. and you just have to duck and hold it there. And if you hold it for like 30 seconds or 60 seconds, a whirlwind shows up out of nowhere, picks you up, and carries you through the wall. And like, I remember we saw that because we had a subscription to Nintendo Power where they like explained this, because that's where there was no internet.
That was part of the Nintendo Power scam. Damn. That was part of the Nintendo Power scam, where they would purposely put obscure, unexplained shit like that in games so that kids would buy Nintendo Power to figure out the solution, because there was no internet to search for it back then. That's an old school scam, baby.
Internet, so you couldn't like Google things. But I always wondered, like, how on earth are people supposed to... And there was someone who like gave you a clue in town.
Nope, there was no one who gave you a clue. There was supposed to be someone who gave you a clue, but it was mistranslated. So the clue wasn't actually in the game in the North American copy. I remember all of this. Again, it's all in the Angry Video Game Nerd video. But you're not supposed to figure it out. You're supposed to either call the 1-900 number to get tips, because they had a call-in number you could call for tips that charged you by the minute, or you could get a subscription to Nintendo Power. It was a way for Nintendo to scam you. Yes, they've been doing unethical business practices even way back then.
But this is like poorly translated from Japanese, so like the English-speaking there's like no way, like it doesn't make any sense.
You gave yourself the answer, then.
So he remembers.
We had to use Nintendo Power.
I'll stop pausing him.
Beyond that,
yep,
you get Nintendo Power. You have the solution. You go to school, and now you got the solution. You tell all your friends about it. You're the cool kid.
Yeah. That was
like,
there was a lot of like
was
discussion.
Kind of the way.
So
yeah.
I wonder, how did they figure these things out?
Probably that way.
Yeah.
The interesting thing that I wanted to mention is there's a really cool, you mentioned this immediate feedback. So there's a really cool principle or like scientific thing called intentional binding, which is what are the things that you can do to increase the repetition of a behavior? Okay, so like if I work out today, what increases the chance that I will work out tomorrow? Now, a lot of people think that the reward that you get from working out correlates with a repetition of the action, right? So if I get rewarded, I will do it again. And there's absolutely a component of that. Really fascinating thing is that there's a particular researcher named Haggard who does a lot of research on intentional binding. And what he discovered was super cool. Like, there are a bunch of studies that show that there are 3 things that you can do to increase... I want to just find the fucking paper. That increase the likelihood that you will... damn it. Okay. That will increase the likelihood of repeating the behavior. And the interesting thing is that this effect is independent of the outcome of the behavior. So people have done scientific studies where no matter what you choose, the outcome is the same. And yet there are certain things that you can do that will increase your likelihood of repetition. And this felt to me like pretty revolutionary. So the first is to think through your options ahead of time. So just consider all the choices. So people who intentionally consider choices are more likely to engage in the behavior. So if I'm
because you're intentionally choosing it, then it's not just a thing you do, it's a thing you chose to do.
Yeah, so instead of like, I need to go to the gym today, oh my God, you get into this conflict of, I need to go to the gym, I don't want to go to the gym.
I get to go to the gym.
Not just what do I want to, how do I want to exercise?
I want to do it.
Not even I want to do it. Just considering your options. This is how crazy it is.
So not even selecting, just having the selection available.
Yeah, well, I think at some point you make a selection, but having multiple options increases the likelihood of any behavior. So thinking through, do I go to the gym? Do I exercise at home? Even going through that cognitive process. Second thing is to predict the consequences of your actions. So spend some time thinking through what you expect to happen. Even just spending some time thinking about it increases the likelihood that you'll do it, irrespective of what happens.
And the process you're talking about, I do this.
So the third thing, and so this is what I'm sure we'll discover, right? Because you're quite productive, and we'll find that. And anyway, the third thing is some amount of reflection afterward. So spending some time processing, and you don't even have to think you don't have to think in a particular way. You don't have to do something specific. You literally, like, after a task is complete, you spend 5 to 10 minutes just doing nothing and reflecting. You don't have to reflect in a particular direction. You don't have to discover anything. You don't have to learn anything. And if you kind of think about it, what I've noticed in people I work with is that some people do this automatically. They do all 3 of these things, and they tend to be super productive. And
That's
there are a
me.
lot of people
Yeah.
like me who don't do these
What?
things. So
You don't.
I used to not. So what?
So you trained into it.
Sort of, yeah. So I trained into it in a kind of roundabout way, but like basically what I used to do is like, it wasn't like, do I want to study at the gym? Do I want to study with my friends? It was like, oh my God, I need to study. I don't want to study. So I was always stuck when I take an action, not thinking through the consequences. I was always stuck trying to work with willpower, like overcome myself instead of consider my options, predict the consequences. And then the other thing that I would always do, this is so devastating. Probably one thing that's huge is as soon as something finished, whether it was good or bad, I would move on to the next thing. So if I studied for a test and I take the test and the test is like, oh man, like I didn't get to that chapter. I didn't get to that chapter. I would immediately try to leave the test behind. Okay, the test is over. I'm done. Time to celebrate. Never spent any time reflecting. Even if my test went well, it's like, wow, I like really studied well for that test. Time to celebrate.
And you don't take into account any of the things that worked or didn't work.
Absolutely.
At all.
Right.
So you carry nothing into the next environment.
You just empty-headed. You just jump to the next thing. So literally, like predicting your, considering your options, making a prediction. Doesn't matter if the prediction is correct or not.
Yep.
And
Testing the assumption. Yeah.
and then just reflecting.
Yep. And it's funny because I didn't used to do that either, and then I went homeless. And I have done that ever since. That exact process you're talking about, the whole thing happened after I was homeless.
What?
'Cause I lived in my car for a year. And after that point, it was like, I never want that to happen again. Let's slow this down a little bit. Let's be more intentional about the actions that I take, right? All the actions that I'm going to take, I'm going to be.
It's amazing. I've never heard him bring this up before. I would want to hear like the circumstances that actually led to him being homeless and why he's. Damn it! I fucked that up. Of course, he makes perfect shots and I don't. Yep, and I had to make that in order to win, in order to tie. I lost because he makes an impossible shot. But I've never heard him mention being homeless and living out of his car for a year. I'd want to hear the circumstances. Because was it you were forced to do this kind of thing? Life put you in that situation? Or was it because you were stubborn and didn't want to go do something else? Or you were stubborn or had something to prove? Like, could you have moved back in with Dad? Was there somewhere else you could go and you just refused to? Yeah. There's a difference between being forced to and, okay, well, I made the choice to do this because my pride wouldn't let me do something else.
Be more intentional about this. And I started doing that process. I didn't know that that was like a standardized thing, but yeah, that's how I approach anything.
That's the thing, is it's not a standardized thing. So it's like biologically accurate, but we don't teach people these kinds of skills. We don't teach people, if you want to do something, what are the actions that you can take that will increase the likelihood of you doing that thing.
Yeah.
We don't know what our brain actually responds to, right? So everyone focuses on building habits. Everyone focuses on building willpower. Everyone focuses on finding the right thing for them. So they're like, oh, the gym doesn't work for me. Whereas like what we're seeing, and this is something I literally just made a lecture about this, about how like we as a society are becoming less adaptable. So if you look at like adaptability as a trait of human performance, as society is like engendering in us less adaptability, because society will meet you where you are. You don't have to learn how to like this game because there are 20,000 games. You can find the perfect game for you. Oh, sign up for Tinder. We have 20,000. We have 1 million people on the platform. You can pick the perfect person for you. You can find the perfect food for you. You can find the perfect job for you. Now with like globalization. And so what we're really starting to see, I'm noticing this, like even in the 10 years that I've been practicing clinically, people are less adaptable. And as you become less adaptable, you succeed less. Because then
they're also more extreme in their requirement too.
What do you mean?
Like, so one of the things that I noticed quite a lot about is if you have a video game and that video game has all the things that you like except for this one little thing, the game is trash, downvote, bad, awful developer.
Yep, happens all the time. I'll give him that one.
And that's the thing that I think is really interesting, is because that sort of infinite choice.
It depends on how bad that one thing is, though. Because there's some people who can overlook it, but when that one, like, if you've got an awesome game and that one bad thing is god-awful monetization, just completely ruining the experience, then you're justified. If that one awful thing is, I don't like this one weapon or something, then yeah.
Where you can select the perfect game means that when you have one thing that's missing, well, then it's awful. It doesn't matter anymore, right? Because I could find something else. And I think that kind of goes hand in hand with what you're talking about. You're right. It is dramatically less adaptable. It's dramatically less interested in finding any type of situation that almost fits and making that work for you. It's more, well, it doesn't fit even a little bit. 1% is wrong. So screw that thing.
Oh, whoops. Sorry.
Yep.
I'd love to hear more about your homeless time, but can I show you something real quick?
I want
Yeah,
to hear
sure.
more about
Do
your
you like
homeless
it when I
time.
show papers, or yay, nay?
Which means he's not really interested in the homeless time. That had nothing to do with the question I was asking. Like he doesn't ever actually like apply the things that he's being asked to himself, which is really what's happening here. The doctor just repeatedly says things that apply to Piratesoftware. He doesn't register them, and then he has to move on to another thing. Yeah. God, I thought I missed that.
Yeah, I love that.
So this is a
You can pull the channel.
fantastic paper called The Neurocognitive Basis of Human Volition. So this dude's absolute Chad. But there's, let me look at this. So mechanisms of human volition in the brain. There's some really cool stuff. Independent. Oh, I think it's here.
Reading
What you
chat.
looking for?
Yeah,
Just
so
going wild with Chad, dude.
it's such a good. This paper is just so long and dense.
Yeah. I read
Okay,
medical
here's
papers all day.
okay.
A lot.
So, crucially, this binding effect is found only for outcomes that follow one's volitional actions and is absent when the voluntary keypad. Blah blah. Okay,
Man, don't know how to control F? Jesus.
okay. I think this is the section. Give me a second. It's worth the wait. I promise y'all. Okay, so first, several studies confirm that the ability to choose among several possible actions increases intentional binding. So, just if you have lots of options, it increases the likelihood that you will do the thing. So here, okay, so this is what's crazy. Interestingly, this effect of free choice was found both when all possible actions led to the same outcome and when they led to different outcomes. So this is what's crazy. The outcome, this is independent of the actual outcome of your action. So simply thinking through things, like literally like
different routes
increases
to the same place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think that's what's so interesting when I kind of hear you, like, you know, in some of the stuff you've like really stumbled into, like this idea of like, let's make things less fearful. And the cool thing is, like, it doesn't matter whether they actually build something or they don't build something, because everyone is thinking like, oh, I have to build something to get positively reinforced, where that's not it, right? And you're talking about there's an emotional component to it. Absolutely. And it's not just about failure. It's like literally like the parts of your brain that urge you to act will get boosted if you think through options, if you engage in some kind of behavior. It doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't matter if it goes well, doesn't go well.
Oh my God, I finally got the trophy. Jesus Christ. Putt that travels for over 30 feet than an official round.
Whatever. Like
It's kind of funny because people come to me all the time and they're like, I don't feel like I want to do anything today, but I have all these things to do. And I was like, have you tried writing them down? Put them on a list. And then one of the things I always tell them is like, a list can be kind of overwhelming for someone at first, right? So you got like 5 items to list. Make the first item in the list you creating that list. So then you have, at the end of you creating the list, you mark that one off. You're like, I already accomplished one. And now I have all these other options of what I could do. So I think that fits in exactly with what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Because that's the piece of advice I'm always giving people. And it works. It works really well for a lot of people. Not everybody. Nothing works for everybody. But the grand majority of people are like, hey, that helped me a lot. I got a ton of shit done today. It's like, yeah.
So one thing that I realized that liberated my list making and helped me so much with lists is that lists don't have to be complete.
They also don't have to be completed in order.
Yeah. So like I started doing this thing a couple years ago where I would make these lists because I was so overwhelmed, and I would have like 15 things on there. And then I would do a couple and I would check a couple things, and I'd look at my list and I'd be like, oh my God, there's so much left to do. I have literally a pile of incomplete lists, or like lists that I've not finished off, and I don't even need to finish them. I realized recently it doesn't matter, because at the end of it, like just getting all this stuff on paper and then like doing a couple things and losing the list tomorrow, it doesn't matter. I'll just make a new list. The process of making a list helps me so much. So I have like this whole stack of just incomplete lists. I'm never going to finish it. That's okay. It's great.
I feel the same way too. Is like I'll create my task list for the day, whatever I need to do, right? Whether it's a mental checklist or just things that I write down, or calendar stuff. Sometimes one of those things is just like there's not enough time today. You know, my body doesn't want to keep going. I'm going to go to bed, right? This is kind of how it is, and we move it to tomorrow. It's fine to do that as long as you are spinning the plates in a way where things are effectively getting completed over time. You're fine. You know, some things are critical and they have to be handled right now, but not everything is. You know.
Yeah.
Fuck that up.
So, Thor, I know we've been kind of meandering all over the place. I love this, but is there something in particular that we should be talking about that you think we should spend more time on? Anything that you're...
I don't know. I mean, you wanted to talk about the time that I was homeless. You asked about that. We could talk about that.
So what changed for you?
A lot. Pretty much everything. So I went homeless. God, I don't even know
Here we go. This is what I wanted to hear more about.
how long ago. It's a long while ago. I lived out of my car for a year. And I was in Colorado at the time. And that happened because I didn't have proper constraints on our business, right? So like I had a business at the time. I was working freelance. I was working on things with another person. The way that it worked is I was creating programming. They were creating 3D models, and we were building these things together and then selling them online, right? And they wanted to renegotiate after probably about a year of us doing this together. And at that point, we were making a lot of money. I was making like 10 grand a month. I was making a ton of money. And for a young person, that's a ton. Even now, it's a ton of money, right? So I was making a bunch of money for this, and I was not careful with my finances, and I was not properly constraining the business. And what this meant is I was spending everything. I was just like, whatever, there's a ton of money. I just do whatever I want, right? I was just being a dumbass and spending on it. I was buying, ordering out, getting all the food that I wanted, doing anything I wanted to do, going to any party that I wanted to do, anything I wanted to. And
that is again, that is the attitude of a privileged person. That I can do whatever I want to do because I have money.
it was what felt right at the time, but I didn't know how dangerous of a position that put me into. Eventually, that person came by and they're like, hey, I want to renegotiate. I want 80%. And I'm going to give you 20% because I do the art and you just do the programming. They didn't respect that the programming was half the job, backward. Right? And I said, no, like we have a deal for 50-50. Like, no, we're not doing that. And they said, okay. And they took all of our work and they open sourced it against my wishes. Our income went gone. So they cut off their nose to spite their face. They lost everything as well. But I was in a much more financially.
So this speaks volumes to his... Oh, so much starting to make sense now. This speaks volumes to his attitude towards Stop Killing Games, because having something open source killed his income. He doesn't want to have to share it with other people. Making that code open source after you sunset the game, he's got a personal hang up over it too. Oh my God, so much making sense now.
Precarious position because I was an idiot and spent all of my money. That was on me, right? Their action, awful. But also, I didn't plan for anything like that. So I went homeless. I lived out of my car almost immediately, too. I didn't have money for next month's rent. Like, it was just like, boop, gone. That's a problem, right? And I was on a month-to-month situation like that, which is already highly expensive. So I was out. And I learned throughout that process, it's like, I could blame them, but where's that going to get me? I'm going to get back in this exact same scenario. And I had a lot of time sitting in my car, being on a laptop, taking internet from coffee shops as I was sitting in the parking lot, to think about those types of scenarios and be like, what can I do better so that even if another person acts improperly and tries to abuse that sort of connection or what they have over me, that I will not be back here.
Yep. And that's the exact attitude he's had towards Stop Killing Games. So we got a number of things influencing his completely disingenuous action towards Stop Killing Games. One is personal experience. Two is, obviously his love for Blizzard, and Daddy still works there, so I'm thinking about him. I'm thinking about the place I used to work and I'm thinking about the extra work or the layoffs that might come from blah, 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 blah. Yeah.
And that's where I formed all of these ways that I kind of handle problems and logically walk through problems and handle everything in the way that I do, is to prevent that from happening to me again.
So, Thor, let me ask you a question. What was your emotional state at the time?
Oh, at first I was devastated. I was so pissed. I was absolutely enraged, and I was just like, I was just super mad, right? I was like, you've stolen everything from me. Blah, blah, blah. And then after a time, I was like, okay, that doesn't get me anywhere. You could be as mad as you want. The rest of the world doesn't give a shit. Not even a little bit. That other person doesn't matter, right? You're not fixing the scenario that way. So it came to this point where it's like, I could be mad, but what does that get me? Wasted time. Not getting that back. That's not going to give me anything at all. So I started to change that sort of idea of like, what's the victory condition here? The victory condition is to make sure that this doesn't happen to me again. Let's change the way that I feel and interact through these types of scenarios so that it can't happen. And it, for me, that worked out really well, was just changing kind of the objective, because I think a lot of the times people want to immediately get back everything that was stolen from them, right? Everything that they lost. You got to get back to where you were. And I realized in the very beginning, it was like, I'm not getting that. That's not possible. That's unrealistic, right? I can get something new, something different, but I can't go back to the way that it was. That's already out of the bag, right?
So, Thor, what I'm kind of curious about is how are you able to logically disarm your emotions? Like, this is very rare.
Oh, fuck.
I think it's effective. Anyone can do it. But I mean, most people, you know, when they get enraged, they can't just, like, I love your framing of like, what's my victory condition? I think that's such a powerful way to deal with emotions. Like, I think you've really stumbled onto something there. I think you stumbled on a lot of things. But what I'm curious about is, you know, I work with a lot of people who they require help to decompress their emotions. So I'm curious, like, what your internal experience of like, this emotion is not useful, let me discard it. Like, how does that
I honestly
work?
feel like, because it doesn't lead to anything attained that is beneficial. I could sit there and be enraged. I could, when I'm mad at someone on the phone, I could throw my phone, right? I could have an emotional reaction. I could throw my phone. It'd break my phone. Does that solve my problems, or does it make more? Every time you have
Yeah, but emotional responses aren't logical. We've all had those rage moments where we did something outrageous. You punch a wall, you know, it's going to hurt your hand. You might punch a hole in the wall. You might create more problems for yourself later. But you got that anger out. It does feel better. I mean, it sucks having to deal with that stuff later, but in the moment, it felt better. Same thing with a game. I'm sure every single one of you said that rage moment with a game and you've thrown a controller and you've broke a controller or you broke a keyboard or something. And it felt good to get that anger out. And now that you've broken your means to play the game, it forces you to take a break from it. And you calm down. Yeah, you got to deal with the fallout, but it does still feel better.
The violent emotional reaction in the beginning, I don't think that solves anything. I think it always just creates more problems. And at that point, I didn't want more problems. I still don't want more problems.
It solves the problem of the... It solves the problem of the emotion you were trying to deal with and being unable to deal with it. So now you can. It solves that problem. And you learn from the experience.
So the way that I felt about it and the way I still feel about it is take the emotional thing and kind of put it into a box off on the side and then look at it and be like, does that make sense? Like, is that going to create more problems? Let's look at all the routes that could come out of that emotional response. Are those routes beneficial?
Yeah, but you're not thinking of the consequences of bottling up your emotions and the damage that could cause. You're not thinking about that.
Does this matter right now? Does this have meaning? Does this actually get me anywhere that makes sense?
What the
Is it
fuck?
okay to feel that? Because if I do feel it in the way that it is, in the exact way that it is, where does it lead? And that's kind of what I got out of that, is being able to dissect that sort of response before letting it go fully forward. And before that, I was just like, whatever, do anything, who cares, right?
So did that change for you when you had this experience of homelessness, or have you always been like that?
I think it got more defined that way. I was always kind of like that when I was younger. Like, I was more like, you know, more logically thinking, more siding with the logic, but I still have, you know, emotional outbursts as a human being, right? And I had that for a long time until I became homeless. And then after that, it was like, never again.
What do you mean never again? You're doing it right now. Current day, you are crashing out constantly. You are mass reporting smaller channels, trying to get them taken down. You literally reported a guy live on stream and then kept everything open so you could see how long it takes Twitch to ban his account. You went on a power trip over that. What are you talking about?
Not allowing that to be a thing. That was a big defining moment for me. Was realizing that I'm an adult now, and there are real consequences to not planning. There are real consequences to not thinking about my actions and thinking about what can come out of that and thinking about, routes and where things lead. And that was like a, no one's going to catch me now. So I have to be my own safety net. I need to take this seriously and think about this,
Damn it.
So that sounds like, like traumatic, but like in a good way.
Oh yeah. Yes. No, most definitely. For me, it was terrifying. I was like, what if the car breaks down? What am I going to do? Right. Like everything was terrifying.
So
everything was
I'm
terrifying.
curious, what is your kind of emotional valence now? Like, do
I feel emotions or?
Yeah, like what's your relationship with your emotions now?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. The only time that kind of like kicks in for like, hey, wait a minute, is when I'm having an extreme emotion. When it's like normal, it's like, oh, I'm happy about this, I'm sad about this. Like, it's normal to feel sad. I think that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. There's never an arm's length for every emotion, but it's like I am very angry right now. Wait a minute. I am very sad right now. Wait a minute. Does this make sense? Because I find that when I have a very extreme emotion, if I just kind of let that go and don't think about what could happen in that moment, like, what if I'm really, really sad, like in anguish or something, and I want to break something? Just break something off the wall, right? You have one of those types of violent outbursts because of a strong emotion. Is that going to help you? No. Probably going to hurt your hand. It's going to break the thing on the wall. Everything's going to suck. You have more problems. So when I have a very extreme emotion...
But you don't have the emotion eating away at you anymore. You've dealt with the emotion. That's the important bit. It's probably not the best way to deal with it, but if you have an outburst like that that's uncontrollable, then yes, getting that out. Like, you have to get that out. That's why it's called an outburst.
And I can feel that it's an extreme emotion for something. Then I hold back and I go, wait a minute, this is too much, right? And we got to wait now and figure out what that is. But for normal, average emotion stuff, I guess there's like a filter in place, if that makes sense. Like there's a filter that says, that's a bit much, hold up, too far, I guess is the best way to put it.
And how do you see what you're doing in the world? Like, how do you see, tell me about what you think about your life.
I think that's an external perspective a lot of the times of like the effect that I'm having on those around me or any of that type of stuff. I do a lot of that I try to do that through objective.
I'd be curious to see how he answers that question today if you've seen the effect you've been having on people.
Means, like I said, analytics before. Things that people are saying, things that people are feeling, things that are,
it's amazing it's amazing the perspective he has when people's outlook on him is positive compared to the outlook he has on him now that everyone's outlook on him is negative. Because this was a year ago. People weren't as negative on him a year ago, so things were pretty positive. It's amazing how much his outlook changed and how he didn't stick by any of the shit he said.
Because it is hard to form a subjective opinion, especially in social media, especially online, right? It is difficult to form an opinion of how I am doing when there are, as an example, the stream has 3.5 million average viewers per month, right? 3.5 million unique viewers. Grand majority of those people don't say anything. I have no idea how they feel about it, right? But they show up, they watch the stream, they engage with some of the content, and we get a bunch of people into the stream, into the Discord.
You're assuming that they like you because they keep showing up, because you keep getting those numbers. But now, here we are a year later, and everyone is telling you how they feel about you. And you're not taking it well.
And I can get at least a gauge on how effective I am being with the types of things that I'm trying to do, how much that resonates with other people. That gives me a kind of basis of understanding for that, even though I don't have the full complete picture. And I don't think there's any way to get the full complete picture, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so what I'm kind of curious about is like, so you know, when we were talking about being homeless, you said I did those three things. I thought about my choices, I predicted my actions, and I kind of reflected on the consequences.
Yeah.
So what I'm really curious about is when you have these like things that you're doing, right? So you're a streamer, you have Game Jam, publishing house, Ferret Reserve. What, I guess I'm not so interested in the word motivation isn't really the right word, but I think it's a place to start. So like what motivates you? Like what is your driving force when you do this stuff? Like what goes on? What I'm really curious about is what is the mechanism? Like what is the experience of motivation for you? Not necessarily like what motivates. Like I mean like when you wake up, right? There's some kind of driver that gets you out of bed in the morning, and I'm kind of curious about what is that?
It's kind of interesting, actually, because I think for me, it's definitely not one of those things like, oh, I have to do it, right?
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people get the, I don't get that at all. I don't have that. And I think I used to for some things, but I've kind of crafted my life around the things that I just like doing, right? For instance, the ferret rescue. Ferret rescue is something that I didn't plan on doing originally. Never planned on doing that. I just knew I lived in California, and in California, ferrets are illegal. So when I moved up to Washington, I wanted to get ferrets. I got 2 ferrets from University of Washington. Their names are Snails and Loki. Loki is still alive today. She's like 6 years old. Snails died 3 years later. She had a heart condition. Ferrets largely have heart conditions here. And one of the things that I
I
realized...
do not understand the obsession with rodents. There's probably a reason why they were illegal in the first place you lived, bud. So who's back after 1 year? Well, welcome back, Joe Fortnite.
in that moment, it was like, I'm very sad about this. This sucks. But also, I was like, but no, that's okay. And the reason it's okay is because in medicine, they will kill a ferret after 1 year. That's how it works, right? Because these were laboratory animals. And I, took it in laboratory animals. She lived through 3+ years extra on top of what would have been her lifespan. And I realized this is awesome, actually. It's awful that she died, but
You're a rodent lover? I wouldn't admit that in public.
she got 3 extra years. Her lifespan was quadrupled, right? Over what it could have been. And in that moment, I was like, I feel good about this.
Damn.
I want to do this more. And then I started looking into other rescues. I was like, what is the biggest thing that plagues rescues? Where do people fail doing this? Where do other groups have problems doing this? So I started to break that down, and I found most of the time they go the route of being a 501c3. So they're a nonprofit, and they have issues with funding the entire time until eventually it closes. Because ferrets are exotic animals. They're incredibly expensive. It's difficult to take care of them, and they collapse over time. There's very few ferret rescues that are out there as a result of this. It ends up being really difficult. I said, how do we fix that? The community started asking, hey, can I see your ferrets? Hey, can I see your ferrets? And I was like, I'm going to put them on stream and just see what happens. So I ran a test. It was like, maybe this could make a little bit of money to help get rid of that kind of a problem. Damn. Well, now today we sit at around 1,200 viewers on there, and it makes enough money so that I can run, eventually, the largest ferret rescue in the United States. The ad revenue from that alone solved that entire problem. So that was me going, I like this thing from an emotional standpoint. I think it does objective good. Other people seem to like it as well. Let's do a test to see if we can do business in a different way so that it can support itself. Let's try that. It worked. Let's keep going, right? And that's kind of how I walked my way through that entire process. And it started with, this is an emotional fulfillment thing for me. How do I have that emotional fulfillment thing in a sustainable way, if that makes sense? In a way where I can make sure that I don't cause harm to these animals by putting a financially inviable situation forward and then failing later on and just having a huge problem for a bunch of animals that I was supposed to be taking care of, right? So that's kind of my whole process for walking through that, if that makes sense.
That does. So I'm kind of curious and even a little bit skeptical is not quite the right word, but I'm curious if there's more. So you're saying you do this for emotional fulfillment?
That one definitely, most definitely. There's something.
What about the others? Oh, okay. Oh, yeah, say more.
I don't know how to describe this to you. There's nothing nicer than like laying on the floor with all these freaking ferrets, right? And they're just awesome animals. It's just really cool. They're
stinky. They're really fucking stinky. They're rodents. They're stinky. And if you died tomorrow, they would eat you. They are incapable of love.
Deep emotional thing for me for that. And I cannot place where that comes from, but knowing that I have extended the life of all of these creatures and they are having better conditions than they did before, because I do a lot of medical research for this. I look into all the different ways we can treat them. Part of what I do is nutrition and medical research to try and form new treatments for them. And in many cases, I've been able to find ways that we can pass that off to the veterinarians that we work with.
Cool. Now he's a game developer, a hacker, and a veterinarian assistant. He is finding ferret cures now.
enacted a plan for them and we've saved their lives. That isn't a financial incentive for me. That is 100% an emotional incentive for me. That feels very good because I know that I'm making a difference in a way that isn't like a financial gain difference. It's in a this animal gets to live. That's really nice. And especially in situations where people treat them really badly. So I know that I can correct the situation and fix it in a way that extends something's life, right?
So I'm curious, Thor, do you find that there are two layers of your, and I'm kind of like asking a leading question here. Sure. So you strike me as someone who is not very emotionally driven, right?
Usually not.
And so what I'm kind of curious about, so that's why I'm kind of like a little bit confused.
It's
and
rare.
I kind of have a hypothesis, but I'm kind of curious whether you find that there's two layers. Would you say that there's two layers of your emotional experience? There's like one where you're kind of, it's not like, you have a lot of exercise over it. And then there's another layer of emotions that feels different.
Jesus.
Right? Because gratification of your positive emotions. Okay.
I don't think there's a multi-layer system there. I think that to me, it's one of those things where it's like, I understand that this is a positive thing for me. I think that I am getting positive kind of feedback from this in a way that's emotional for me, but also can I do that more in a way that adds for other people and adds for these animals? It's a mutual benefit thing at that point. The animals win, the viewers win, I win. Does that make sense?
It makes a lot of sense.
I think you'll see that across everything that I try to do is like, I don't like the idea of one person winning. It's the whole thing of, rising tide raises all ships. Anytime that's going on, like that's why I brought the moderators on full time. That's why I do all the free knowledge that we can do on the Discord. Everything that I try to do is with that because this is funny because it feels greasy otherwise. It feels wrong.
Curve.
Right? If you
Why
like
is it not
the way
curving?
that I feel about it is if I become a millionaire, I probably screwed up. I did something wrong. Right? Is like put it into other things that actually have meaning and do something of tangible benefit. And the ferret rescue to me is definitely an emotional fulfillment thing. But when having something like that where the stakes are so high, where things can go wrong and then animals can be hurt because you didn't plan ahead, there has to be that logical component of making sure it's self-sustainable, which is exactly what the stream is for. So it's the logic side ensuring that the situation is safe enough for me to get the emotional fulfillment and do something that I think is good that helps other things like the animals, the ferrets, and the community. Because we also spread a bunch of knowledge in that too. Try to spread it around.
Can I think for a second?
Sure.
I think Dr.K checked out. He just doesn't care about the ferret shit. I don't blame you, bud. Oh, fuck. I fucked that up.
So basically what I'm kind of thinking through internally is slightly more esoteric concepts. So I'm kind of hunting for an answer. And like, so when I see your life, I see a lot of two things, dharma and karma. So dharma is dharma. Are you familiar with that term?
Yeah, I watched Starman.
Yes,
So
that's the things that you are obligated to do, that you're intended to do, versus the things, or
it gets translated as duty usually.
Yeah, duty. Yeah. Okay.
But I think it's a different emotional valence from should. So I think it's and then the other thing is karma. So like that what is happening in your life feels to me like a chemical reaction that is playing out. That a couple of pieces were put in and there was a predisposition for something, and you're kind of leaning into that. That's kind of why I asked about this double layer of emotion. So I find that for a lot of the work that I do, there is like sort of a different feeling. So one is like a deeper sense of dharma, or a feeling of like rightness, which can be emotionally gratifying. But I think that the fluctuation of the emotional experience of those things is almost like independent of this other quality.
Make it.
And in fact, I think that it's the second thing that allows me to sustain the emotional variance, right? So like if
Out of one and into the other.
if I loved streaming and I did it for positive emotions, then that would not work because the emotions are not always positive. Sometimes they're negative. So the key thing about talking about from almost like a scientific perspective is it is that which allows you to act and persistently act outside of the variance of emotions and outcomes. So the reason that I'm kind of asking you this kind of stuff is because like I get a lot of vibes from you that track to this concept in the meditative tradition from having done a lot of meditation in a past life. I think I've mentioned that to you before. Because you intuit a lot of things that are like normally taught. And so when they say like, okay, like, so if you spawn and you're level like 50 as opposed to level 10, how do we understand that? Oh, like you just XP'd up prior to spawn, and then you carry over, when you respawn, you carry over some experience.
You're saying I'm on New Game Plus. Okay.
You're on New Game Plus. Yeah. Beautifully said. Beautifully said. Right. So many of the things in your life feel very New Game Plus-ish to me. So your capacity for like discrimination. And by that, I mean like being able to like,
It's amazing how all of this went out the window, how you hear him give the correct answers to everything and then still act in the opposite when the time comes. Wow. I would want to hear Dr. K talk to him now after all of this has gone through. Not that it mattered, because he's clearly learned nothing from all this. Jesus Christ. Yeah, I mean, Dr. K's he did much better during the other conversation, and I don't know which one of the two conversations came first. I think this one came second. Maybe he's trying to be nicer in this one because of how harshly he probably feels he came off during the last one. But he's in a hard spot because I just cannot hit a perfect shot when I'm doing a front spin to save my life right now. But he's in this impossible position where he's got to like lightly call him on it. It's not to anger him because the man's ego is so fucking fragile. But he also has to do it in a way where he's not legally diagnosing him with anything, because this isn't a therapy session. So he's got like this fine line he's got to walk, and he keeps walking up to the line with him and introducing him to it. And Piratesoftware will accurately identify the thing that he's trying to walk him to. Like, he'll accurately identify it and then do the opposite, like take the opposite thing away from it.
Your internal awareness, your capacity to like think through, okay, like is this a good thing or is this not a good thing? Let me abandon it. That's very rare. So like most of us, when we think through things and it's a bad thing, we still keep doing it.
I can't do that.
Finally.
But that's what I learned at that moment when I was telling you when I was homeless. Is like, I didn't do that before that. Not really. Not to the capacity I do now.
Fair enough. So and this is where I don't know if like, I have a particular way of viewing the world. It doesn't make it correct. And we could ultimately say that everything comes down to there's just one layer of like emotional valence, and that's what it is. But really, like, everything you're describing like screams to me of these two concepts. And I was just curious if you have encountered those before, if you think about it, because I don't.
I've never encountered that. I guess that, to me, that kind of splits between like emotion and logic, because the emotional need is like, hey, this feels great to do this. I feel fulfilled doing this, but it's beyond that. There's like something else there, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I just can't. It's hard to describe.
That's what I'm talking about. So is there a third variable? And the logic is about the implementation. So once the driver is there, the logic is like, how
do we do it?
Exactly. Yeah. It's the how. It's not the what direction you're going in. And
for me, it's like I have the thing is like, why do I want to do this?
Damn it.
How do I want to do this? And then at the end of it, it's like,
fucked it up.
Okay, if I do this,
I hate that it pops that little box up there to give me the challenge and puts it right above like the thing I have to focus my eyes on. It distracts me every time and makes it impossible for me to do those challenges. I hate that so much.
Does that make me drop anything else? That's a big one. Does it get in the way of any other things, objectives that I have? Can I make it so that it's sustainable in a way that I can step away from it and it works? Can I make this so it expands? Like, there's so many different things that go into that. It's a lot
of... So if I could give you advice for your current situation, step away. If you won't want to admit that you've done something wrong, if you don't want to take accountability for anything, and all you're going to do is double, triple down and crash out, maybe the best thing for you to do right now is take a vacation. Is take a break. Step away.
Of pieces, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but all that comes afterward.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying?
All of it comes afterward?
So let me ask you this. Is the reason you do it because it needs to be done?
I think the world is an objectively better place if I do it.
So
it becomes a compelling factor.
How do you understand the specificity of how you make the world a better place? Like, why do you care to make the world a better place in particular ways?
I can't.
When he says make the world a better place, when someone like Piratesoftware says they want to make the world a better place, they mean their world. Not the world the rest of us live in. He means his world. That's what he means.
I make the world a better place in all ways. I can do it within my purview. There is a limit.
Exactly. His purview. His world. As long as it makes things better around him. That's all he cares about.
What I can do as an individual. So because of that, I want to do that specifically, in this case, because I can make a difference here. It is possible within what I know, my knowledge of it, my interests, and my means, if that makes sense.
So, but there are many ways in which you could make a difference. How do you decide which ones to do? Is that your emotional response to a particular thing? Like, why ferrets as opposed to anything else?
So, for instance, if I decided to get very deeply into an aspect of something that I don't know anything about right now, it'd be very hard to make a difference inside of that area. The reason why is because there would be a perception that I'm not an expert in that area. The perception from the general public means that it's much harder for you to make a change there, make a difference, a real difference. By going down this route and showing all this stuff with ferrets and doing everything that I have and having all this information and all these things that I'm doing, it makes it much easier to make a difference because now we have something that is widely seen as being positive force inside of that area. Now I can actually make a difference. But if it's an area that I'm starting from scratch on, there's all those pieces that have to fall into place first before people trust you enough that you can make a difference, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense. So I'm kind of curious because my Geiger counter is going off the charts, but when I talk to you about it, it doesn't seem accurate, right?
Okay.
So I'll just share my own perspective, and I think this is just something I just got to ask you.
Waiting for the golden question to uncrack because maybe there's a piece that's missing there that I don't understand.
I don't think there is a piece that you misunderstand. That's why what I'm going to do is just share my perspective, and I'm curious what you think about it.
Sure.
So, what does he get out of these conversations? I understand what Dr.K gets out of it. I'm trying to figure out what does Piratesoftware get out of this. Other than making himself feel smart and I guess stroke his ego a bit.
I have a logical mind. I have an emotional mind.
Yeah, it's that. It makes him feel smart. Makes him feel like the smartest guy in the room.
So if we look at emotions, we also know that there's two basic kinds of emotions. There's our more primitive emotions like anger, fear. And then we actually have a second layer of emotions called social cognitive emotions, completely different part of the brain. Pride, shame, guilt. That second layer of higher human order emotions requires other humans to be present. So a reptile, I don't know if a reptile ever is capable of feeling guilty, but a reptile can feel anger or fear. Mm-hmm. So these are the layers of the self. So in my experience, there is a third layer of stuff. So this is where I would say dharma and karma operate. So sometimes when I'm meditating, for example, I have a particular insight, and then I will sometimes act on that insight, and it's weird. Sometimes I will not have spoken to someone in many, many years, and I'll reach out to them, and there's something kind of going on in their life, and it's kind of spooky. So there's something about my experience of life makes me think that there's a third layer of stuff. And when I think about the work that I do, I think about what is logically good, and I think about what is emotionally fulfilling. And clinical practice is sufficient. So in clinical practice, I would make way more money than I make now, because doctors get paid very well in the United States. And then I find the work very fulfilling. It's great. I love doing it. I trained really hard at this. Every day is...
All right. We're going to skip forward a little bit. Find out if he says anything else worthwhile. I'm kind of checking out here. 'cause
Joined
they're just
in with the
looping.
hacking community. I go to DEF CON. I
Oh,
compete.
there we
in it.
go. There we go.
I can't explain it if you want to, but that also, like, there's some amount of personal exploration. There's some amount of like reading a bunch of books. But what I'm really curious about is how do you understand that? I don't want to pollute you with.
Okay,
The
here we
calling
go.
portion.
Yeah.
Here we go. I want to hear him talk about the hacking stuff.
I don't know. I think that's one that's kind of outside of my purview, frankly. And it's funny because it's not like a religious experience or anything like that. It was just like, this is correct. We're gonna do this now. Like that's how that's gonna go, right? I'm gonna take the emotional side of this. This is definitely fulfilling in that part. It is the logical side of it. We like this can be done, right? This is possible to do. And then also that third esoteric component of whatever that is, I want to do this. This is getting done, right? And then on top of it, it's also the other stuff for me too, which goes into the emotional side of it, which is there is a real benefit to the animals. There's a real benefit to people that get to engage with this. And it's something that I find to be good in the world. So that's all on the emotional side. And the objective side is like, cool. Like the illogical side is like, cool, it can pay for itself. I don't have to worry about that. I never have to worry about it collapsing, right? If I position this correctly, which is always a thing. You always have to figure it out.
Are you aware of other things that come from that third layer? So we talked about the fair thing. The fair thing is like that's Geiger counters off the charts, but I'm curious, like, have you noticed that layer in other parts of your life?
Constantly. So doing free and open information. I gained that from the hacking community. When I joined in with the hacking community, I go to DEF CON, I compete and everything like that. A big part of being a hacker is spreading as much information as possible, teaching other people to solve problems that are difficult with interesting solutions, right?
Damn.
So my Discord's completely
Every
structured
time
that
on
way.
this whole.
I don't need to do that. I could definitely gate that behind a whole bunch of paywalls or other bullshit. But that component says, nope, do this free. Do this free and release it to everyone. And that's exactly why I do that, is it makes sense to do that. It is the correct action to take. You know, anytime that I'm taking a stance on those types of things, there is that extra component. It's not a
So brave. So brave. Jesus.
not a purely logical, not a purely emotional. It's that third piece. And I've kind of traveled with those and used those for different reasons of choosing different things I want to focus on, right? The ones that are truly important to me are the ones that third component takes place. And it does happen quite a bit. There's a lot of things there. And I think it's, for me, that's what defines me as myself. If that, because we all have emotions, we all have logic, but the things that I decide, not even decide, the things that I am compelled to do from that third piece is what I determine to be me, if that makes sense.
That, yes, I think that is consistent. So I'm curious, what do you think that third piece is?
That's difficult to discern. Me, right? Like everybody's going to have their thing. I guess that for me is my thing, whatever it's going to be. And I feel compelled to engage in that thing. Right?
Can I ask about? So I know you've had can I ask about your relationships?
Sure.
Ooh, yeah. This is where we'll find out if he actually has a girlfriend or a wife or something.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. Does the third element does that inform you about anything relating to your relationships?
Yeah. Actually. Yeah.
Can you share that with us?
Yeah. When I got married, actually, that was a big thing. It's like
He is
that felt
married.
correct. That felt like this was the thing that I want to do. This
So that means he cheated on his wife when he was messing with that furry, right?
is exactly what it is. There's an emotional side to it. There's a logical side to it. The emotional side is like, hey, this relationship is really working. Been together for a long time. This all makes sense. Logical side is like, do you have enough money to buy a ring? You're gonna look like a dumbass, you know, like that. It's like a normal one. It's quite funny. But then, like, also the other things is like, am I jumping into anything too soon? Does it make sense to actually go and try this? Is anything gonna work, right? And then go along with that, right? And yeah, that relationship ended. Really devastating.
Okay, never
But
mind.
at the time, in
Been
that
divorced.
moment, I could take that as a definition for me of like, this is the right time to do this. I feel correct about this for all their aspects of this. And there's that third component that says, go for it, you know?
In terms of getting married,
Yeah. Well, in terms of, yeah. You know, proposing and going along
what
with
does the third layer say about the end of your marriage?
that it's fine, that it doesn't always work out. And like, for me, I gained a lot of experience from that. I learned a lot there. It is, even though it ended, that's okay. And it's, this is going to be such a bad, like such a weird way to post it. It's like an old multiplayer game, right? Multiplayer games are
Go
amazing.
with the video game references.
phenomenal.
There's only so many of these I can
And
take.
one day that multiplayer game ends. Nobody's playing it anymore. Doesn't work.
But it wouldn't if we stopped killing games. Huh? Do you acknowledge that that sucks? Everything like loops back to him in personal experience. Maybe he's not an industry plant. Maybe he's just that fucking egotistical. So the stop killing games thing has more than one like personal connection to him because now he's equating the end of his marriage to the end of a video game. And he couldn't save his marriage, so why should he save video games?
And we kind of can sit around and pine for the old days.
They're supposed to end just like my marriage was.
It was perfect and it was at its peak and it's amazing. Or we could be like, I was there. I experienced that and I can remember that fondly and I can take that into account for the rest of my life. You know, and I see it as the second piece. You know, I had that experience and it was great.
Yeah, the death of a video game is like a divorce for him. He had to go through it, so we all should. It's misery loves company over here.
And I learned a lot from it, and there was upsides and downsides, and I'm happy about it, you know?
Yeah, so that's weird, man. Like I'm really like this Geiger counter is going off the charts because like this is so consistent, right? So like this is where. Yeah, it's so interesting that you never like learned this stuff. So this like kind of makes me feel spooky because like this is where all the things that you were saying are written about, right? So even your perspective, like the conclusions that you're coming to, the existence of the third layer of stuff, and I
don't know where it comes from. So
yeah,
sad.
no, I mean even your hesitance to describe it. I ask you like, what is it, and you say it's me, and you don't give it quality. So this
it's hard
really,
to.
This was
that's
really,
the one where it's kind of difficult. Yeah.
Yeah. So this what's really cool is like the Sanskrit description of what that third place is neti neti, and neti is not this. So it is not this, not this. So it cannot be described.
So it's not the emotion. It's not the logic. It's something else.
It cannot be described. It is that which cannot be described. So it's me, right? So you can't.
Yeah, dude, it's so cringe. All right, I think I'm done with this. There's still like 20 minutes left on this interview, but I think we've gotten what we need from it. If you guys want to watch the rest of it, there's a part 2 to this, but I think I've gotten what I need out of it. So you guys can go watch it if you're really interested in seeing the rest of this interview. This one's not nearly as interesting as the first one was. But I think Dr. K kind of knows at this point that the likelihood of him actually, like, quote unquote, getting through to him is pretty low. So he's just kind of trying to get his thought process down and how he processes things more is what this one was about. And what we've learned here is that the majority of like everything in his life has to relate to him in some way. Like every decision he makes has to be equated to him in some way. Even when he's talking about seeing the bigger picture, he's talking about his life. He's talking about his bigger picture. Stop killing games. He can't like think about all the other individual consumers. He has to relate it back to himself, which is why he's so adamantly against it, because he's equated it to his marriage. He's equated it to those other things in his life. And that's just how it is, guys. You guys are crazy. You can't stop this thing from happening, just like he couldn't stop his wife from leaving. Oh, God. The ego on this guy is just insane. He is beyond cringe. Good Lord. All right, well, you guys want to know what the lolcow gene looks like? That's it right there. He's going to be right on board, right on the same tier as Boogie 2988, Low Tier God, Wings of Redemption. But don't worry, there's a path forward for you, because I know you're always looking for that path forward, Piratesoft. There's a path forward for you, and it's lolcow live. So you won't have to live in your car ever again. I promise you that. I don't know how much I believe he actually lived in his car instead of just... Like, I think he could have called his... That was probably a pride thing. You could have called your dad for help, but you chose not to. You'd rather live in your car. Whatever. That's fine. I can understand that to an extent. But you'll never have to do that again, because if you keep bleeding subscribers the way you're bleeding them, things keep going south for you because you just refuse to behave like a normal person, accept any amount of accountability, and just apologize and admit fault. If you just keep refusing to do those things, don't worry. Don't worry. There is a place on the internet where you can be a content creator and continue doing what you're doing, and it'll be fine. And it's called lolcow Live. Give Keemstar a call when you get down on your luck, when you think you've hit rock bottom, and he'll hook you up. He'll pull you out of that hole. He may bury you in another one in his front yard like he did Boogie, but he'll pull you out of the one you're in. You might have to mud wrestle too, or whatever other crazy thing he'll have you do. But you'll have a career online. You'll never have to work a normal job again. Isn't the internet wonderful? All right, that's it. I think I'm done with Piratesoftware after this. I think I've gotten a good beat on his personality and everything I need to know about him. So there's only so much cringe I can think. I was going to watch the second part of this, but I think I got what I need out of this one. So tomorrow we'll check out the content cop on Taylor Lorenz, and I've got a few other things on deck. But for now, that's going to do it for this stream and this video, guys. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Please hit the subscribe button. It costs you no money. It helps the channel. And if I get to 1,000, I can actually start making money on these videos. So, you know, we all win, right? You get more content. I get to feel like a real YouTuber who gets to make a little money on his hobby. So it would help me out a lot. I would appreciate it. For those of you watching live, this is where the stream ends. We do this stream every night at roughly 9 p.m. Pacific time, 12 Eastern. But that time frame's somewhat flexible. So, you know, be sure to jump in the Discord. That's pinned at the top of chat. It'll also be in the video description. You can get your alerts there or follow me on my other socials. For now, though, thanks for watching this one, and I'll see you wonderful witches tomorrow night. Have a good one, everybody.